What's up, people? Sorry I'm late. You know how it goes. This morning I had a little coffee fiasco where I'd left my travel mug somewhere that is yet to be determined. And I was like, I can't do this show with no coffee, and the coffee at work's terrible. I'm going to get a new coffee maker here. It's going to happen. We've decided. But anyway, I put some saran wrap over this and tried to carry it to work without spilling, and I wasn't entirely successful. So that was part of my being late. Check out my mug. Tools of the trade. That one came from home. Come on now. Les Paul and Strat. How is everybody? Good morning. What's happening? You guys see me okay? Didn't have time to double check the video and all that. I just turned it on and I hope it works. And I think it looks pretty damn good, actually. Getting my lighting in here sorted out. Oh man, I got this crazy light for video. As you might have seen, my videos are starting to look a little more professional. I can warm this thing up. I can cool it out. It's pretty cool. Here, check it out. Oh, it's getting warmer in here. Oh, it just got warmer. Look at that. Lovely. Maybe a little too much. Let's go the other way. There we go. And take it down a couple notches. Getting crazy about this stuff. It's actually really fun. I had avoided this, like, you know, trying to up my game with video quality, lighting, and all that stuff forever. And I was like, I just care about the sound, you know, and just did what I did forever. And now it's become like kind of like a new hobby. So I'm sort of having fun with it. So hopefully it'll get better. Somebody says, like the purple. Okay, I'm going to show you what this light looks like. Just so I know this isn't what you guys are here for, but I'm going to show you anyway because it's insane. Let me just take a picture of it, and then I'll show you because this thing is bonkers. This is, of course, it's not. This isn't this. You know, it's got a diffuser on it, right? But it looks like. Whoops, where's my camera? There's my camera. It looks like that, right? It's huge and it's in the corner and got this great big diffuser with the honeycomb thing on it and stuff, and it costs way too much money, but it's cool. So, what happened this week? Somebody says I'm a wee bit fuzzy. It looks sharp as can be over here, so I think that's just a broadcast thing. So, you know, like going over StreamYard. I mean, it looks really, really, really sharp to my eyes. I'm not going to leave it. Camera is focused on the mic. Oh, is it? I don't think so, man. I've got the autofocus going. Here, I can change that on the fly. There, it's going out of focus. There, it's going. Oh, let's see. How about right about there? And I know it sucks because I need to remember to look at the camera because I've got what I'm doing now is my Sony A6000, old good, you know, sort of DSLR or whatever style camera that I've got that I haven't used for a long time. I've got it kind of reconfigured as the webcam right now, but I can't put it somewhere that's, I don't know, it never looks like I'm looking at it, and I know that, so I'll try and be a little more this way. When I'm reading, though, I got to go over this way. Ed says that he ordered, let's get into guitar stuff. Ed says that he ordered a Fryette PS100. Thanks for turning me on to it. Pistol Pete arrives tomorrow. They've been sold out everywhere. They have. If you're looking for one, I guess I wasn't that clear enough in the video description, or maybe nobody looked, but in the video description of my video for the PS100, there's a link because Tone Merchants has a few, and they still have two. So if anybody needs a PS100, there's an email link down there to Tone Merchants. So the video for the Fryette PS100, look in the description below. You'll find the email link, and there's still two. So there's two available if anybody wants one right now, because I know they're hard to get. They had three, they sold one, but I was surprised that they didn't all go really quick because it's a great unit. Steve Hawthorne says that looks like the light Ola uses. Yes, exactly. Very similar. I don't know if it's, you know, the same, but it's a similar, you know, where you can control the Kelvins, you know, how warm the light is and stuff. And then it's got the great big diffuser on it and makes it look much better. Like probably like you see now, the lighting's not harsh and crappy. Yeah. So what else we got here? Who else is here? Ben's here. Thanks, Ben, for being here every week. I appreciate it. It was fun last week with Tracy. I'm glad that went off kind of like without a hitch. You know, it technically seemed to go really smoothly and stuff like that. And he's a great guy, so it was a lot of fun visiting with him and whatnot. Good times. What did I put out this week for videos? The Furch guitar video. Did that come out this week? Anyway, Furch guitars from Czech Republic, acoustic guitar video. That came out recently. I put out a video for the UA pedals. It actually hasn't been getting that many views. I'm surprised. I thought maybe more people would be interested, but maybe it's old news because they came out a while ago. I don't know, but they're great pedals. So, and I like the piece of music I came up with. So check it out. UA pedals. That's what I meant. Not Furch pedals. Furch guitars, UA pedals. What's the other one I did this week? Oh yeah, the Ultra Tap from Eventide, which is that's a fun. I feel like the name of it doesn't get me as excited as I want to be about how good it actually sounds. Like I thought, okay, it's a multi-tap delay. Yeah, it's actually like really cool, like with all the swell stuff it does and how you can do pad type stuff and really creative ambient stuff. So if you haven't seen the video on the Ultra Tap, check it out because it's a different, it's a very I don't know. It's not where you go for your analog or tape sim, or it's not going to do EP3 sounds or whatever, but it does something completely different. That's really cool if you're into delays. So it's a lot of fun. I like it. Big Wave Dave says, great show last week. I was an LA Guns fan. Did you happen to catch the Tom Bukovac show? I've seen Tom's. I watch Tom's YouTube fairly regularly. I love what he does. Does great stuff. Does really good stuff. And he's one of the, kind of more interesting sort of folks on YouTube, I think, that kind of came out of the whole, pandemic YouTube situation where everybody started doing it. And I've really enjoyed a number of different, Steve Vai as well. I mean, the stuff he's done has been really, really great on YouTube. Ever since this past year. Troll St. Jean says coffee is a must. I would agree with that. Or Troll Street Journey, Troll St. Jean. Anyways, you should get a coffee machine for the studio, says Preston. Yeah, I'm going to. There's some sort of $600 European jobby that I guess we're going to get. We're all going to chip in around this building and get it going because you need it in the studio. It's like a must. It can't be working for 12 hours a day and not having proper coffee. That sucks. Sloppy Fingers is up in the super chat and he says, loved last week's show. Canadian trainer amps, Lado. God, there's a name I haven't heard of Lado guitars for 30 years. I remember Lado guitars. Are they still around? I remember they had who played those? Somebody, was it Rick Emmett for a minute or somebody played those Lado guitars they had kind of a hockey stick kind of headstock. And I remember they made some glue in neck models that were, or maybe they were through body, but I think they were glue in and they were that kind of super stratty, What about Larave when they were doing electrics? Remember those? They were kind of like the Lados too, maybe I'm getting them mixed up because I remember them being like their electric models being sort of similar. Anyway, did they make, I wonder if, getting super deep Canadian here. Did they make the Paul Dean model, I wonder, for Kramer? Because the Paul Dean Kramer sure did look like some of those Larave. And I know Kramer kind of sourced out, like they weren't building everything in New Jersey or whatever. A lot of them were made by ESP and stuff. Does anybody know that? Anybody got any Canadian guitar history knowledge? Too Loud McLeod, who had one of the best rhythm tones in rock and solo tones. I mean, he just had one of the greatest guitar tones. If you want to hear great classic rock and roll guitar tone, and you're in the States or somewhere else over in Europe, you probably haven't heard of the Headpins. Which was a fairly popular Canadian band, but regionally in Canada only, really domestically. And they had this guitar player named Brian McLeod, and everybody called him Too Loud McLeod. And he played a 62, I think, Strat, single coils. It'd been modded a little bit and stuff, I think, but it was pretty much a straight up 62 Strat. But a really weird guitar amp situation where he would plug into use Music Man's and would crank them. And supposedly for the recordings, he did something crazy where he would mic the sound of his guitar. So he'd mic the guitar amp. I don't know what kind of cab he was using or what, but it might have been Marshalls or something. But Music Man amps through a PA, great big PA, and then he'd mic the PA. And that's the sound on the records, is the sound of the PA. I don't know if it's like he would mix the ambient sound of the PA in with the close mic sound of the guitar amp. If that's what they mean, that would make more sense to me. Because I'm like, how do you mic a PA and get that really? Because it sounded like really in your face. But anyway, check out the Headpins from Canada, and great, just killer, straight up rock and roll. Like, you know, never more distorted than Angus Young, I would say. But he did. People sort of thought of him a little bit as like the Eddie Van Halen of Canada, because he did sometimes tap. I remember, not like gratuitously fast, but it was more like his solos were so melodic and just the perfect solo for the song kind of thing. When you think about, I sort of think of him also like maybe like in the context of Keith Scott, he's another great, you know, guy that played the right stuff for the song. Neil Giraldo, he had a little bit of, but he was more like a little more technical than Neil Giraldo, I would say. But in a similar way, he would play the right, perfect thing for the song, you know. So check out Brian McLeod if you haven't, and you like classic rock, and you might be like, oh, there's a guy here that I could get into that I've never heard, you know, that plays in this awesome style that is, you know, if you're into that stuff, if you're into that kind of thing. Ethan Rick says Larry Carlton was doing that mic'd PA speaker for his wet signal. Did he mic the PA speaker for the wet signal though? Or did he just, because I know he was doing the wet, dry, wet, but using the JBL cabinets, but I thought that was maybe just an onstage thing. Did he mic them? He might have, maybe, I don't know. So, and I think there was a couple other guys doing a similar thing for a while with the wet, dry, wet. Maybe Robin did it. Oh, I shouldn't say that because I don't know. Iron Maiden played Lado guitars. Did they? That's crazy. Maybe for just a minute, right? For just a second. Paul says I had a couple of Lados back in the 80s, bought from Joe himself in Scarborough. Yep, Brian loved to play drums a lot as well. Yeah. He was a drummer too, right? John's asking me if I've ever made coffee with, is that hickory? Is that how you say that? Coffee bean blend? No, actually. But I do. Sometimes I'll get those, like a Blue Bottle coffee. I'll get those New Orleans style, and that's got it's not chicory, right? It's hickory. Is that how you pronounce that word? Anyway, that's in there, and it's good. I like it. Yeah. Guitar player for Lee Aaron played Lados, says Ben. Interesting. I probably saw those videos and stuff. I should remember that, but it's been a minute. Key Marcello played Larrivee. That's interesting. Interesting. We're getting back here. It's all 80s all the time here this morning. All right. Let's see. Iron Maiden in 86, says Prince Westerberg. So around after Peace of Mind. What's the next album, of course, called? With 2 Minutes to Midnight. Why can't I remember the name of that record? Somebody help me out here. I saw that tour. Great tour. It was amazing, actually. What a good memory of an 80s show, for sure. Lytham St. Anne's Guitar Shop is up there in the super duper chat, and they're over there in the UK. Enjoy beer on us. Thank you. Which overdrive pedals have impressed you with a really low noise floor and smooth gain while boosting the crunch channel of a valve amp? Well, I love, a great thing is a JHS Bonsai, I believe it's called, which is all the tube screamers in one, and even an OD1 in the same pedal. That's a great pedal. I did a video of it a while ago, so check that out. The Apex 808 was another one I did recently. That's a limited run from the guy that originally designed the tube screamer, and it does sound better than most tube screamers. And I show it next to a TS9 in the video. So I know direct apples to apples would be a TS808, but I didn't have one around. So I thought a lot of people might think all tube screamers are kind of similar. So I showed it next to a TS9. It sounds better than a TS9. So check out the Apex 808. And then, I'm going to give some props to a friend of mine. CKK pedals, which are hard to find in the US. I don't even know what this one's called, but he's got this one. I'm going to show you what it looks like, and you can track it down if you want. This thing, he sent me and he said, you're going to love this thing. It's amazing for boosting Marshalls. And I'm doing a limited run of them. There's only going to be 100 and something, because he's got vintage chips that he uses in this. And just to, screenshot this or something if you're interested in the pedal, because I don't know the exact name, but I bet if you go to the CKK websites, I don't really understand the names of the company. There's a little bit of lost in translation going on, but that's the CKK logo. And CKK and Sinvertech are the same company. This fellow really impressed me. He's like he's based in China, I think, and he's a real guitar geek. And he makes great sounding pedals. So like CKK and Sinvertech, I've done some time-based pedal reviews from, like delays and reverbs and stuff, as well as I think a chorus vibrato maybe, and then some various overdrives and distortions. And he makes amazing sounding distortion pedals that are super duper amp like, with all the switches in there to kind of fine tune the tone of the pedal for the amp tone and stuff. But anyway, he sent this one to me and he said, I love old Marshalls, and for boosting a Marshall, this is a very special pedal. So, and I've heard a million overdrives, right? And it's like God, does the world need one more overdrive? Well, this I plugged in, I was like, oh my God, it's amazing. It actually does this really great sizzly thing to the top end. And it's, kind of that, almost like when you mod an amp and the harmonics seem like jumping off the neck and all that. Stays tight and doesn't really sound like a pedal's on. It just sounds like part of the circuit. And it doesn't sound like a tube screamer or a clon. It's its own thing. I don't even know what it's called, so I should look through the email and see exactly what it's called. But anyway, you can probably tell if you go to his website. I'm sure there'll be some news on there about a limited pedal that looks like this, and then you would know. But this thing, it's only going to be 160 of them or something, and it is killer in front of a Marshall. So that's what you're asking. Lithium, am I saying that right? Lytham, St. Anne's Guitar Shop. I hope so. Look for that if you want something really interesting. But stuff that you can get a little bit easier. Check out if those Apex 808. They ain't cheap, but it's great. And then an Archer is what I've had on my board forever to boost. Archer's great from Rocket. And I use the one with the Jeff Beck mods, a couple slightly different parts in it or something. They all sound good, but that one I really like. It's just really, it's a fatter, more low mid kind of warm, like fat single note. Great for solos, but it's not like the sizzly upper mid thing that this thing does. It's a different thing. Reza says that he's surprised I haven't reviewed the Poly Effects Bebo. Absolutely incredible and so ahead of its time. The convolution reverbs alone run circles around anything in the price range. Interesting. I haven't tried it, and they haven't approached me, I don't think. So that's the thing, right? Like there's only so many. I can do, generally speaking, I seem to do 2 videos a week, because each one takes me a couple days. And then I do this on Sundays. So that's 5 days a week right there. If I do 2 days on one gear video, 2 days on another gear video, and I come in on Sunday, and then I do some other stuff here Sunday usually, and anything else I got to do, like recording wise, a session or something like that, right? That's 5-6 days a week in the studio right there for me. That's all I've got time for. So I really don't. I mean, it's sitting right here is a Walrus pedal. I've got a Source Audio pedal that I got to get to over there, and there's about another 10 right now. That that's how it works. It's like these pedal manufacturers, they want videos, and there's a fair amount of guys out there doing it, but there's not that many really. When you look at the usual suspects, the ones of us that pop up a lot, I guess. So it's I am not complaining, man. It's a fantastic thing. It's fun. I love making music with these things, coming in here. But that's really the thing, is there's only so many hours in the day. And if a manufacturer doesn't contact me, I generally these days, unless it's something that I'm really like, oh my, like you sort of got me interested in this Bebo pedal. That sounds interesting, but do I have time to really, when there's other people like waiting and they like, hey, make a video with our pedal. And I'm like, okay, so I do it as long as they sound good. So that's really, it's just a time thing. That's all it is. Rocket Pedals says, I guess somebody might have been asking who makes the Archer. Yeah, that Rocket Archer. J Rocket is the name of the company. Just search Rocket, ROCKETT pedals, and you will find the Archer. Judd's asking for the best overdrive for an AC10. I don't really, is an AC, I would say something warm, because if it's an AC10, it's probably like a top boost style circuit, maybe. I don't know if an AC10 is, but I'm going to assume, which can be picky about pedals. So you want to do something kind of warm. And I was like something like an Archer, or, that has the treble control you can dial back. Jan Ray probably sound really good. The Timmy probably sound really good. The little Timmy from MXR. So there's a pedal that's easily attainable, and I love that pedal. For transparent kind of overdrive, the Timmy's great for that. Mike says that he got a Headrush FR full range flat response 108 after watching my review, and he digs it. That's cool, man. Use it with an Iridium. They're great little cabs. I set them up this week to try for something, and I was like, oh yeah, these do sound really good. Good sounding for sure. So what else we got here? Let's see. Ethan says, yeah, the drum through PA in the studio is more common. Getting back to the Brian McLeod thing, miking through the PA. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna kind of assume that he mic'd the PA and that was his ambient sound, and that he mixed it in with the straight up guitar close mics, because it sounds so present to me. So I don't know how he, you would mic a PA and do anything else. But yeah, so miking drums, like I know Grandmaster is a studio here that in Hollywood where a lot of great records were made. Color in the Shape by Foo Fighters comes to mind, and they had a big loading dock, and they would pump the sound into the loading dock, maybe using, I think that's what they did with speakers, and then mic that. It's essentially a chamber reverb, where you got a big open space or small open space. It's like the chamber reverbs at Sunset Sound for the Eddie Van Halen guitar sound. It's a speaker in a room, and then you mic the room, and you just send off the console, sends the dry signal out into the room through the speaker, and you get the ambience of the room. So that's kind of what I'm assuming that Brian did, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Hayden 8822 says a similar story was told on Mix Like a Pro about Matt Cameron's drum sound. Apparently it was a kit run through PA and then recorded. Yeah, it's common. I mean, this is something that another guy that does a different style of music is Daniel Lanois. I've read about him running just about everything through speakers and then remiking it to give the albums a real live feel, where it's a little more like an instrument coming through a PA in a room. You get the reflections of the room, and then if you do that with almost everything, it gives a real continuity to the sound, because it sounds like a band playing in a room, because you're getting the same room characteristics. Now, you can simulate that probably pretty damn close by using a convolution reverb of some sort and running instruments through it. I use Ocean Way Studios plugin like that all the time, where the Ocean Way Studios is essentially like rooms convolution done, room reverb essentially. And I've got, generally speaking, that up on a send in my DAW and stuff, so that I can just send out to it. And you send a little bit of the drum kit there, and you send the guitars and even maybe a little bass out there, and it, you get a little bit of this ambience of a room, and it just kind of glues your mix together and makes it sound like it's got a little more life. So yeah. Mateo's asking about reactive loads. He says, after your experience over the years, what kind of reactive load do you like? Sorry, I should be highlighting more of the other questions here as I move, shouldn't I? So I use 3. I have basically, my amp switcher setup that I've got with the amp Pete. Send 1 off my amp switcher. So the amps all go into the switcher, and then I can switch between 8 amps. And then I can go out to 3 loads and or speaker cabinets. I can go out to 8, but I'm just using 3 of the outputs on the thing. So send 1 goes out to the reactive load. So that's my main thing that I use for as far as for recording and getting line outs of amps. So either with IRs or without, like I can use the IR in here, or I can turn that off or just take the unfiltered out, and then I can do the IR stuff, speaker stuff in the computer. So for that stuff, if I'm doing that, I mainly use the reactive load. Now I've got the aux too, which is up there. Aux is on send 2 out of my switcher. The aux I will use, particularly I really like the AC30 cabinet that's in the aux. It sounds great. So I've got this nice top hat, which is essentially an AC30 up there. So if I'm going for the quintessential kind of AC30 thing, whether it's be it the Edge or Brian May, or be it whatever, anywhere in between, or just something, I'm like, the AC30 sound would be great for this. I'll use the aux many times, and I'll use the room. The other thing I use it for is the room mics, because the room mics are fantastic. So if I want to do a, and Brian May is a great example of somebody that used a lot of room sound on his guitar solos. So if I want to go for something like that, where there's a space to the, and I want it to be, it's a little more like using reverb's fine. And the way I just said, Ocean Way Studios is fine. It gets you there, but it's a little more realistic with the aux or something, and using the room mics. If you just want to add some you want to widen the guitar sound a little bit and get some of that space going, and just a little bit of ambience. So the aux is great for that. And the greenback cabs and stuff are no slouch. I'll rely on other things for that, but the aux has really good sounding greenback cabs and stuff too. If it's a great one-stop shop, it works really well. Now the Fryette is the third thing I use, and I use it to load down my amps and then reamp to mic through a cabinet. So you can use it as a load box like you would the Sir Reactive load or the aux load down the line level, but it doesn't have internal speaker sim or anything like that. So the main thing I use it for is, and the Reactive load is great in it, and I do use it, but I'm using it to load the amp down and then reamp with the internal tube power amp out to my old Marshall cabinet in the other room that I've got mic'd up. So I'm using 3 really, and I make good use of all of them for different things. So that's how I do that. Guitar Doc up there in the super chat. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. He didn't ask a question or anything. He's just saying hello. What else we got here? I'm going to go down to the bottom of the chat. And I thought the top hat was more of a Marshall than an AC30, says Singal. So I have 2. I'll show you my top hats because I love Brian and these amps are great. Here's one that I bought many, many, many years ago when I was on the hunt for an old Marshall and I couldn't find one that sounded good. So this is an Amplexador, which is basically his 50. He made a 50 and 100. This is his take on a Marshall. It's a 50 watt EL34 situation. And basically you got your input here and then you got a modern and vintage mode, 2-position switch. So vintage is pretty much straight up old super lead. Modern is more JCM 800. Then you got the master here. Sorry, that's the gain. So this is the gain, and pull boost. All that is actually a bright cap. So if you pull the boost out, it puts it like a 73 style, like a real aggressive bright cap, and just makes it more aggressive. If you put it in, there's no bright cap, and it's much more it's almost too dark, I think, with the switch in. Although it can work, as you get the gain up to 8, and it's fine, for some maybe brighter single coil pickups, whatever. You get a warmer option there. But I generally speaking, you can even see my markings. I would put the gain there, and then pull, and then you get the bright cap, and that sounds just great. And that'd be like running an old, either a metal panel Marshall in like 6 or 7, essentially. And then you got your master, which I had marked here. These days when I use the amp, many times I'll just dime the master because then it's kind of like it's as most out of the circuit as it could be. And so that's that. And then there's this switch on here, fat and treble. That is like JTM 45 style circuit or more like super lead, switching it down. And kind of, reconfigures the amp a little bit for that. I don't know how accurate it is, how much it actually does, but it's supposed to be JTM 45 or super lead. And then you got your, bass, middle, treble presence, just like an old Marshall. So that's the Amplexador 50. This is a great sounding amp. If you want a great sounding, versatile, sort of all the eras, from the 60s through the 80s, all the eras that we really care about, it's there. There's a line out with a level, nice effects loop. That's it. So I bought this amp for a song, man. It's cheap. Back because it was used. And it needed a new input jack, or it needed it cleaned or something. And I got it. So I got it really cheap from Guitar Center in Sherman Oaks. And then I took it to Brian, and he fixed it up and retubed it, and it sounded great. And I used it for a lot of years. Now, this one is a 4EL84, essentially an AC30. So you've got your top boost channel here with the addition of a master, which I always have on 10. Don't want to use a master on an AC30. And then you got your treble mid bass, mid control, which I always run on 10 because that's like it, an AC30 doesn't have a mid, and generally that's like having it out of the circuit or whatever, the way it's designed, original AC30, just put it on 10. And then it's got a cut as well. And then this is a normal channel with an added tone control. Now I had this amp modded. Friedman put a mod in it so I can, you know how a real AC30 normal channel has no tone control. It's essentially a gain stage straight into the power amp is what an AC30 normal channel is, a la Brian May, right? So if you hit it with a treble booster, you don't want that tone control. You don't, well, maybe you do, but I mean, the classic sound is no tone control. It's just a volume like you would see on an AC30 normal channel, and it sounds kind of woolly. And then you hit it with a range master, and the heavens open up, and you know the sky, the seas part, and it sounds amazing. So I wanted to be able to get that sound. So with the push pull here, I can knock that tone control out and do the straight up AC30 normal channel, or I can turn it on, and then it actually is beautiful for clean stuff. This channel. So that's the AC30. That's the Marshall. King Royale is the AC30, and Plexador is the Marshall. And then he also did his take on Fender circuits. The Ambassador, the Club Royale was a more like a deluxe, I think. And you know, so he had his Marshall Vox Fender kind of things with top hat, and he would do variations on. Kind of, they were never exact copies or anything. Obviously, you see the way they look, but they were sounded really vintage and really good, and it was really nice amps. So, and I liked him. I miss that guy. He was cool, and I learned a lot from amps about him. Kind of back in the day, he was one of the first people that ever really taught me things about amps. So if anybody knows him, say hi from me. Leroy says, rock on with your bad self. I have some original material I've messed around with. How does one go about owning their own songs? I'm pretty green on the whole process. Well, a simple one-stop shop kind of thing you can do is a lot of the services these days that allow you to distribute music. I don't know about TuneCore and stuff, but I know CD Baby did this. You can sign up with them and they will register your songs for you. Like to, if you're, you want to become a member of ASCAP or BMI, and then through CD Baby, they'll do the paperwork and register the songs and all that for you. You just pay a one-time fee, and it's not a lot, it's like, I think, you can do a whole album with them for $39 or something, and $50 or something. And then they'll go through the job of assigning who the royalties are supposed to go to and all that. And then you can even have them collect, like you can do sync licensing through them. For example, if the song ever gets played in television or anything like that, they'll track it and help collect. And so they're a service I'm kind of an idiot when it comes to this stuff too. So I've used them in the past for releasing my records because it's real easy with them to do it that way. But you might look at TuneCore and, DistroKid and these different ways to distribute your songs, and they might offer a similar thing probably, where you can register the songs and all that. So look at CD Baby's site though. I'm not a huge fan of them anymore. They piss me off, but there's things like that are good about them. So anyway, that's my short answer on how to do that stuff. Yeah. Interesting. The product names that amp makers have to come up with that invoke a classic amp without creating a lawsuit at the same time. It's interesting. When I think about Dave Friedman, who's a good friend of mine, of course, Friedman amps, everybody knows Friedman amps now. But when Dave first did an amp and put it out, well, he put out a few different things. But when he first put it out and called it a Marcia. Some people might remember that. Marcia. So that was a little too close to comfort, evidently, for Marshall. And they sent him a nice but firm letter, I think. And he thought, okay, no problem. I'll change the name. Change it to Friedman. Called it the BE100, right? Did that hurt him? Not really. I think it was probably the best thing that could have happened, because now he's Friedman amps and everybody knows Friedman amps. They don't remember the Marcia, or maybe it was too close to Marshall and people would have been, oh, it's just a whatever. But he went and changed the name and then was able to establish himself. So the tricky thing is, and the smart thing with him, and he doesn't even like necessarily like gold panels in the way that traditional Marshalls look, but in the beginning, he wanted people to know what he was going for, which was basically like, I'm doing my take on these circuits and trying to but with my own twists to optimize them, and he didn't shy away from the look. And I think that helps cement in people's mind exactly what's going on. So the poster before was like, oh, I thought top hats were basically like Voxes, or basically like, because a lot of them look like, you see the Amplexador and the to a casual glance, they look the same. You know, maybe he should have, you know, put a copper panel on it if it's the Vox one or whatever, and made it look a little more like, you know, and then it would, you avoid that a little bit. Lithium St. Anne's Guitar Shop says, thanks for the recommendations, especially the Archer. Just realized my Tim Pierce Overdrive is also made by Rocket. Yeah, and that's a great pedal. That's a really terrific. The Tim Pierce I love. That's a good sound. I forgot about that pedal. Actually, I used to have one on a board for a little while, and Tim's a good friend of mine, so of course I should remember that. But it really, really nice. And Rocket makes many nice drives, actually. I like their Jeff Beck one, too. It's called the Lead Boots, I think. That was killer. Guitar Doc says he's trying to record a PT100 through a Sir Reactive load. How high do you usually push the output level on channel 3? You can push it up as high as you want, but I would say it's making full power. If you don't have the master engaged on the back, run it on 3 or 4, and you're, you know, imagine how loud that would be through a cabinet. You're getting plenty of volume at that point. You don't have to go beyond that, really, I would say. You know, you're getting some good output tube stage interaction by the time that master's on 3. So 3 to 4 is fine. You know, you don't want to like drive the hell. Most of the amps tone really is generated in the front end in a PT100. I mean, the power amp's important too, but you can play with it. That's the beauty of a reactive load. You know, you can literally sit there and just, you know, turn it up and down and then change the output level on the reactive load. Just make sure the red light on the reactive load isn't coming on, because then you're going to get the clipping of the IR section. So you want to leave yourself room there, and you know, you can adjust that by turning down the DI output level there, that control. So yeah. Gregory says, great show with Tracy Guns, man. I appreciate that. It was fun. Corey says he wants to play a violin piece on guitar. He's up there in the super chat. What pedals could I use to get near the tone and make it sound like it was meant to be played on guitar? You make me think back to an amazing patch that Dweezil Zappa made for the Axe effects that sounded like a violin. It was amazing. You could play guitar through it, and it was like, God, that's really good. Like, it's crazy. And it's probably still a stock patch that they have in the Axe effects, but that's not really what you want to do, is it? You want to get near the tone and make it sound like it was meant to be played on guitar. An octave or a harmonizer? Not really an octave. Violin. Everybody always talks about Eric Johnson as having the violin tone, you know. I start to think of like rolling off the top end, because with a violin there's not as much attack. You don't get that initial sharp attack. It's a more smooth, even when you reverse the direction of the bow. I used to play violin. I started on violin, so when I'm thinking about it, when you're playing, it's a smoother transition. You know, the attack is smoothed out. So you're going to want to, you know, it's about rolling. I mean, you know, how did Eric do it? I think, you know, Chandler tube drivers or, you know, fuzz face for his fuzz sound. And then kind of, because when you think about the fuzz face, it actually rolls the attack off. You know, it's a pretty squishy attack that you get out of a fuzz face when you're using that. So that maybe something like that. But I would look into kind of like probably Eric Johnson and listen to some of his stuff, and then watch what he's doing, listen to what he's doing, how he sets his Marshalls. I think he, you know, would, you know, run the tone controls way down. Mine started saying Ebo. Yeah, maybe Ebo. Maybe, you know, I use this Digitech pedal that I love called the Freakout. You might want to watch my video that I did for the Freakout. FREQOUT, Freakout from Digitech, and it's a feedback pedal that if you set it certain ways, it can be very natural sounding and go into kind of harmonic feedback, or it can be more, you know, smoother, and you can turn off the dry signal completely, and that'll essentially give you this like muted kind of, I don't know, it's really interesting. You can see me do it in the video, and maybe that's something you could check out. So yeah. Hello from Halifax, says Mike. We tune in every Sunday. Thanks for being here. It's been a minute since I was in Halifax, but that's a nice city. I like it. YouTube recommended your eruption lesson. It's an oldie, but a goodie, hopefully still. Awesome job on that. I've been working on a couple sections that I've been faking since the 80s. Yeah, man. You know, Me too. It's funny. I'm starting to get a handle. Did anybody see the video that I did on Instagram this week for the solo for You're No Good? I'm starting to get a handle on some of these things with Eddie that I never heard before. And it's coming to me easier now all of a sudden. And I'm loving that. Like, you know, I figured out how to play Spanish Fly, which I could never play the middle right. And then I was like, it clicked one day because I had to do it for something. And so that was cool. But the solo for check it out. I put it on my Instagram. I might start doing a short, you know, like quick lessons on cool Eddie Van Halen licks, I think, and cool little things as I discover them, because I've been putting them on Instagram a little bit, but not on YouTube. So I might do that and then get a little more, like make it a 5-minute lesson. I used to do those 5-minute lessons on YouTube, and I enjoyed that. Like, how can I do a quick thing here that's not going to take me all day to make? And people kind of, you know, people have less shorter attention spans or whatever these days anyway. So maybe that's, you know, but I could do that lick from You're No Good. It's so cool. He taps and slides with his tapping finger, and there's no way to get it to sound right unless you do that. And it didn't occur to me, but I slowed it way down and I listened to it really closely. I was like, oh my God, I see how he's doing it. He's bending up, tapping, sliding, pulling off and going back down. And it's so friggin' cool. So anyways, I'm still hearing things that I'm discovering, but, Arthur says, yeah, I love that short lesson. Your 5-minute lessons were awesome. Thanks. I should do that more. Yeah. Brisley says, ooh, EVH lessons. That would be awesome. I'm thinking, you know, I got the guitar, right? Where's the guitar? There it is. And it inspired, you know, I just, like, when I play this guitar, I just want to play those licks. Right? You have to. You've got to. Come on. And so it's fun. Anyway, the lick is, no, it's up there. And that's it. So, that's the lick. Can you hear that at all? Nah. So, kind of like that. So I can do it obviously better if I warmed up with an amp. That's the lick. So I could teach that, you know, and do it in 5 minutes, and it would be a neat little insight, I think, because the slippery phrasing of that makes it sound right. And if you don't do that little thing, it doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound like the song. So plug it in, says Gary. I don't want to, you know, I'll lose you guys if I don't have a sound here right now. But I will teach. I'll put it on YouTube. Okay, I'll do it. I'm going to do it because I know it's a fun one. So, your Light Up the Sky solo recently sounded pretty spot on, says Steve. Thanks, man. Thanks. Cool riff, says Byron. It is. It's a fun one, right? Okay, so moving along. Victor Avdi says, Nitro versus Pauly. Is it true that a guitar with Nitro has a better tone than Pauly? I don't know. I mean, there's so many other things that matter more than the finish. If the finish does matter, that I don't think it's really I mean, Sir would tell you that that's crazy, you know, and he said, you know, I just don't think that, as long as the finish is relatively thin, which they can be if they're Pauly, I don't think there's a thing with tone and finish. I just don't. I don't know. I mean, if there is, it's like, really? Like, if you put a compressor on it, do we still hear it? Or a distortion pedal? Is the effect of the finish still, you know? I'm a huge believer in wood affecting a sound, you know, or, you know, different construction or, you know, scale length or other things. Finish? No, I love Nitro, you know. And I don't mind if a guitar gets checked and all that stuff, but I like Nitro for other things besides, you know, any kind of tonal. I mean, Fenders back in the day, they had the Fuller Plast stuff all over. You know, if you look at my old Strat, yeah, it's Nitro. Let's get it. For those that don't know, it's got this layer of stuff that ain't Nitro. See the yellow? Right? And that'll wear through eventually. and there's obviously parts of the guitar that are worn all the way. This is a 64, right? So there's parts that are worn all the way through, but it's got a layer of supposedly, I think it's some sort of poly stuff underneath the nitro that Fender started putting on in because they were getting so much wear. If you look at the 50 strats and stuff like that, the finishes were so thin, and nobody complains about 60 strats as not having, so I don't know. I will say the finish is really thin. I mean, if I look at it compared to some modern finishes, especially where it's worn away, it's like, there ain't a hell of a lot going on there. I mean, it's interesting when you see the burn through here of the stuff on the top, and then this is burned out completely, the red or whatever, and then you get to the fuller plast. That's what that is. So they literally were like putting the stuff on. I don't know if they were dipping them or spraying them or what fuller plast is, but it was something to kind of try and seal the body more. So anyway, let's just hold on to this because it's nice to hang on to while you're, just generally being on the earth. Andres J89 is up there in the super chat and says, I'm an apartment player that enjoys BB King, Vaughn, Bonamassa, Led Zeppelin, The Who. Any suggestions with good dynamics? I don't mind throwing a few effects and an attenuator if necessary. That's a broad question. I want to help, but an attenuator, if you can swing it, something like the Power Station with for the tones that you're talking about, something like the Plexi, like the little Marshall, the SV20 or whatever, that with say a Fryette Power Station would be about $2,000 all in, and you would have an amazing little apartment rig that you could play at bedroom volume, but with the, because those little Marshalls sound pretty good. I got to say, those vintage, the 20 watt. And that'll get you right where you can roll down the volume, do the thing, maybe add a fuzz face for Hendrix, add a fuzz, a tone bender or something for Led Zeppelin. You'll be right there with all those tones, even, Stevie Ray Vaughan, if you set the amp right with the tone controls low and stuff and maybe jumper the channels and, you could probably get pretty good with a Strat, I would say. You're right there in Hendrix territory for sure. You didn't even mention Hendrix, but anyways, BB King, now that's a different thing. But yeah, I think the main thing is getting a good, if you're you can do the same, not the same, but with modeling amps or a Katana or something, they're great for low volume, apartment playing. But if you really want to go that extra mile and you got a little bit of cash to spend, I would say something like a great tube amp with the Power Station would be really cool for playing quietly. What else we got here? Robert Young wants to know my take on, he's in the super chat, he wants to know my take on two very different players. Russ Parrish, who was one of the first people I met in Los Angeles when I moved, and Alex Lifeson. Well, Alex, I was always a huge Rush fan. So, growing up, I started listening around the Signals, Grace Under Pressure era, because that's just my age. And then I got into the other stuff later. But Alex, you hear a lot of Alex in my, the way I play and that chord, playing chords on the, with the top two strings open, any kind of suspended sort of, stuff. That's all Alex. And the way he, some of the stuff, off Signals was probably the first record I really started listening to. So I know Moving Pictures was like the one everybody, it's like their Sgt. Pepper's or something, I guess. But Signals was the album. So that'd be like the equivalent of the White Album. But no, I don't know. But some of the tones on Signals and stuff, I really, I love New World Man and so Analog Kid and Digital Man are on that as well. And isn't Digital Man the one that's got the reggae sort of where he was kind of getting almost into Police territory, because I think he was kind of influenced himself by, got that chord actually right at the end. I don't know the chords, whatever the chords are, I don't know, but it's so cool. And then he ends on the F sharp 11, and with the chorus and everything. I loved all that stuff, Yeah, influenced by Andy Summers, he was at that point, I think. But he was he's a unique player that really, in the context of Rush, because there's such an interesting band where it's almost like you had a lead bass player, kind of like Entwistle, was. I'm going to come back to this, right, because I don't want to miss Lauren's question. Lauren's up there in the top, so I'm going to come back to my thoughts on this just in a sec. He says, what Thornbucker set did you put in your Les Paul? In a Les Paul, in my R9, I have a set of the original Thornbuckers, so not the Plus model, and they work great in a Les Paul. So if you want a vintage, a PAF thing, that's what I would recommend, just a set of the straight up Thornbuckers. And I didn't do any coil taps or anything like that, although you can, because they are 4-conductor. You can do the Jimmy Page thing, have push pulls and stuff like that if you want to. You want a little more heat, there's nothing wrong with getting, it's not that different, the Plus model, honestly, but you're fine with the original one in a Les Paul, I think. Okay, so what else about Lifeson? Just the way he wasn't the most, I love his guitar playing, so this isn't a diss on him, but he wasn't the most, like, it wasn't like some sort of really accurate, or shredder or anything like that. And that would have been too much in the context of Rush, I think, with a drummer that played sort of as great, but also a lot, as Neil Peart did, and then Geddy, who was pretty busy on bass, but it was awesome. Kind of like, he was a little bit more like a Pete Townsend, where he was sort of framing out the song more, and then that left room to move around on the bass. And that is such a unique sound in a band that maybe only The Who had, right? But I know they were obviously, they did a cover of The Who. They did was it Substitute or something, or I don't know, something. No, it wasn't. What was the Who cover they did in the 10, 12 years ago? Anyway, doesn't matter. They didn't they do a whole record of covers or an EP or something, and then it had that Who cover on. They were just big Who fans, I know that, and especially Geddy, with he was obviously influenced by Entwistle, I think. So Alex just slotted in there beautifully, to the point where maybe he was starting to get a little bit like, hey, like, why am I getting out of the way for keyboards, like in the 80s when Rush went a little bit more that way, and he kind of had I'm needing to find space now in my own band. Why do I need to, and so there was a little bit of that going on. But of course, they worked it out and then went more into the harder rock sound again at the turn of the century, So, anyways, I find him fascinating and a great player. I'd love to chat with him, actually. I'd love to have him on this show. So I've thought many times about trying to reach out and stuff and see if he'd be interested in doing it, because he seems to be doing a little bit more of that kind of stuff recently. And I know he's I could just tell he's everybody says he's funny as hell and just like, just a riot. So I'd love to chat with him, and it would be a real pleasure. We'll see. I don't know. I'll try and anybody's got any connections, hook me up. Okay. There's a few more super chats here that I got to get to. So let's see if I can do that before they disappear. Phil says, thanks for the comments. Yes, the drums need to be quantized. Oh, yeah. You sent me your music. That's right, Phil. So I finally listened to Phil's music. I'm sorry, Phil, it took me so long. Yes, the drum needs to be quantized, but I'm glad you like the tone. Your guitar sound did sound good. It's an Origin 20. Okay, through the Fryette. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good rig for sure. For sure. We'll keep on rocking, my friend. And let's see. Mark here says, I did a little research on the Sir Badger. Is there a significant difference in tone, compression, or response between the 18 with the tube rectifier or 35 with the solid state? They're really similar sounding, but the 35 has the headroom to do stages. Melissa Etheridge got a 35 when I was playing with her, so I remember it pretty well in that context of hearing her playing through it. And my 18, to be honest, it might work at some gigs, and I know like Landau use it with James Taylor and stuff. But for my guitars and playing rock and stuff, it was like not quite loud enough, the 18, which is interesting because here's different amps, right? The PT15 works for me, but it's a different design. It's not cathode bias, and it's not EL84s. It's the 6Vs, and John designed it to run kind of cool. And so there's headroom there. And with the design of the channel 1 in the PT15, there's headroom there that the Badger 18 just didn't have. But the Badger 35 has plenty, I think, and a really similar tone. I don't know, the tube rectifier. I don't know. I mean, I don't think you need that, in order to. I mean, it's a thing, I guess. It gives you just cathode bias, the tube rectifier. You're definitely getting into the softer side of things, you know. So if you want punch and attack and some clean headroom with a drummer that plays moderately loud, probably go for the 35, I would say. That's the Badger kind of lives in that, is it clean, is it dirty space, you know. And you know, does that extremely well. So that's, you know, it wouldn't be my amp to go to for cleans necessarily, you know. It'd be my amp to go to for rootsy Americana, a little bit of, you know, is it clean, is it dirty? Oh, there's a little bit of edge in there, but if you play light, it sounds clean, sort of thing, you know. Have you ever rediscovered old gear you've had forever? Well, that top hat is a good example. Or this is Ian Ferguson. Or yeah, it's a Randall Sustainer 140 combo. What is that amp? I've never even heard of that one. I remember the RGs. That's it, like RG80. This amp I bought recently because I used to have one. I had the combo, but it's the head makes more sense for the studio because the cab's in the other room, and if I want to run through a cab and blah blah blah, so it just makes more sense, you know. So that's something I've rediscovered recently, even though that's not my original. You know, my old one is who knows where. So it was a green one. If anybody out there's got a green King Royale now, you know, from the late 90s, that could have been mine. But I loved that amp, and I used it on tour, and it was a great AC30. And for AC30 is the one sound that I feel like you have to have that amp, or a boutique copy of that. You need the circuit in order for it to sound right. And generally speaking, it's got to be going through two Alnico Celestion speakers to get that sound that we know and is a specific thing that's just perfect for some things. And so you've got to have that if you want that. You can't get it out of, you know, folks will say, how do I run my PT100 and make it sound like an AC30? I'm like, it just doesn't. Like, it's a very, very, very different sound. Yes, you can make the PT100 sound like a Marshall or like a super reverb or like different, you know, Fender Marshall. Yes, all day long. AC30, you got to go there, you know, all the way. You know, it's like trying to make a small body, you know, Martin sound like a D28 or something. It's like, it's not going to happen. It's a different thing. So, yeah. Did I miss any super chats? Let's see. I know there's the one that's up there now. I'm just gonna make sure that I haven't missed any others. I don't think so. I think we're good. So let's go to this one. That's Arthur, and he says, let's start a Guitar Gods roundtable. 3 legendary artists at a table talking about anything and everything. That was It Might Get Loud, basically. You know, I'd love to see It Might Get Loud too. I really would. Yeah, I'd love to see that with modern guitar players too. You know, newer guitar players. It'd be fun to see like Yvette Young and Mateus Asado and St. Vincent or something. Annie, you know, that'd be fun. You know, something like that. And hear what they talk about, because they're into different stuff, you know. They don't, you know, they don't care about old Marshalls as much. It's a different thing, but it's totally valid, you know. It's just a different era and generation, so that'd be fun. But I'd love to, you know, God, wouldn't it be fun to listen to I'd love to hear David Gilmour and Jeff Beck sit around and gab. You know, that'd be pretty cool, because I know Gilmour really has this respect for Beck, like we all do, but you know, that would be really interesting. Do you have a Desert Island phaser? I mean, a Phase 90, a great scripty Phase 90 is all you really need. A Small Stone is a great thing too, but those are my two. You know, the Seymour Duncan phaser that came out a little while ago that does a billion different things, it can nail the old Phase 90 sounds really, really, really well. So that's a great one if you're looking for a modern one. Seymour Duncan. I use a Dunlop Phase 95, which I quite enjoy on my pedal board, the little guy, just because I have limited space, so it fits on there and it's great. Yeah. Not like, you know, it's funny because people ask me what's the greatest pedal for this or that, or like the Desert Island thing for phaser. And it's like, well, when I think about it, I've got a Phase 95 on my pedal board that, yes, there's boutique phasers out there and other stuff, but I, like a lot of folks, I go by what I can fit on my pedal board. And what's available. You know, I'm not like this. Like I use that Dunlop mini wah. There's other wahs out there that are really amazing, you know, but I'm not like seeking out the it fits on my board because I've only got limited space. I don't have space for a full size one on there if I'm going to keep the Mobius on there. So, you know, and then the Mobius I use for Univibe because it works. And I know a lot of players are like, oh, you know, gotta have this, gotta have that, can't do that. And I'm like, I don't know, it sounds like a Univibe to me. I mean, honestly, I know that a real Univibe is great, but it's like it's close enough to get the part done and sound like a vibe and do the, you know, that's how I approach my stuff a lot. I'm not as like purist as a lot of people, I guess, you know. Just kind of I'm cool with using what gets the job done. People still think my pedal board's too big. I get, you know, look at that thing, like, God, that's insane. Like, how do you even work that? And it's like, I really have some pretty simple pedals on there, and I'm not like this purist, you know. I put everything on there I need to get the job done, and that's it, you know. So John is up there in the super chat as well, and he says thanks, by the way, to Arthur for doing the super chat, and that was very kind of him. And I like your idea of starting a Guitar Gods roundtable. Sorry, Arthur, I don't feel like I gave you your due there. John says, putting together a hot rod Strat, have a Thornbuckle Plus in it, but not enough poop. Suggestions. So you want a little more output. Well, if you need it right away, but I might be working on something. So if you can give it a second. Other pickups, honestly, if like a go-to right now, what I would recommend is a if you want a little, like, it's a little bit more on the brighter side, but it's great, is a second degree black belt from Motor City. So that's I love that pickup, and it's a little hotter, and it's Alnico 5. It's around 9K Alnico 5. And the Alnico 5 right there, when you switch the magnet, it gives you more push. The other thing you could do is try taking your Thornbucker and switching the magnet. That would be interesting. Try putting an Alnico 5 in it and see what you think. You might get what you want. It's going to be a little more, you know, if you could order it, you know, if you're interested in doing that kind of thing, you got a tech that could do that, you might have an interesting hybrid pickup there that nobody else has, and it's cheaper than buying a new pickup. So it might be what you want. The 4 is just, you know, a 4 to a 2, you know, you get more and more, a little less push there, and a little less, a 2 is going to warm up the top end even more than a 4. So an Alnico 5 will give it a little more sizzle and a little more Van Halen. I notice you've got a Van Halen theme going on there, so that might be what you want. I would try that, honestly, even though Eddie used Alnico 2, you know. So it's all about, you know, something about the Motor City pickup that sounds a lot. It's like a raw Van Halen 2 kind of sound to me. So the Motor City second degree is the one if you want to get a brand new pickup that I would check out. And seems to work really well for that sound. I don't think you'll be disappointed. But try what I said, and then come back and let us know how it worked. You be our guinea pig. Try get an Alnico 5 magnet, like a whatever what do they call them, like rough cast, whatever. You can buy magnets from, you know, probably Stu Mac and places like that, I think, and you could pop one of those in there and give that a try. I'd be interested. I should try it too. What else we got here? Do you have any experience with the Chase Bliss blooper pedal? I don't. That one I haven't tried. I've tried quite a few, but not that one. What's a good humbucker size P90 for my SE24? I would probably look at offerings from Duncan and from Lawler. I think they both have, and maybe Lindy Fralin has one. I know Lawler does, I think. So people seem to like their P90s, you know, and Duncan's got a few different. A pickup that I've always kind of wanted to try because I thought it was interesting was that Duncan that Ty Tabor used for a little while that has a rail and then a P90 coil, and then you can do different combinations of like single coil and humbucking with it and stuff, and it's supposed to get pretty accurate P90 tones, I think. That's an interesting pickup that you can fit in a humbucker slot. You might even get some more going on, but I think Duncan has a P90 style in a humbucker, so you could Duncan makes great pickups, you know. You probably need to look no further. Matter of fact, Was it? No, it was a Gibson one, the P94. I had a Les Paul for a while. In the neck of a Les Paul, I had the P94, which is their P90 in a humbucker, and then I had I think 59 in the bridge or something, a Duncan. That was cool. Yogi did that for a while out on the road with Chris Cornell, and I thought that's a cool combo, so I copied him and I did the same thing in one Les Paul. See, Prince Westerberg says that he's put Alnico 5 magnets and decent cable on cheap Chinese pickups off eBay and got some crazy good results, even next to my Duncan and Fender custom shop. Yeah, maybe can you, Prince Westerberg, where did you get the Alnico 5 magnet from? And then let us know that. And then, I mean, it's probably not a hard thing to find, but Scott from Maryland is suggesting the Duncan Fat Cat, I think. Yeah, look for that one. Look for that one. And Ben Coombs is offering John some help finding magnets. If needed, I can help source a magnet. My pickup builder is in Victoria. See, you got all kinds of help. This is great. I love our community. Isn't it fun? We're going to make this happen. I'd love to know what you think of your Thornbucker with the Alnico 5. I think it might get you where you want to go. Because it's a PAFE pickup with a slightly offset wind, and it's 8.7K. If you've got a Strat spaced one, it's 9K, so that might be all you need, is just a different magnet in there. John says he loves Alnico 2 magnets. What are you coming out with? Well, okay, I'm always experimenting with stuff, but one of the things I'm experimenting with is slightly hotter pickups with different magnets. So it's just something that we're messing around with. So yeah. Yep. Maybe you have the right pickup and just need more gain, says Dan the Tube Man. Yeah, it's interesting because I know I'm just seeing the Van Halen in his, I don't think of the Thornbucker Plus Alnico 4 pickup as necessarily being a real Van Halen sounding pickup, although you can play Van Halen on it. But to me, it's a bit of an oxymoron because, well, here's the thing. Eddie used so many different pickups and different types of pickups that I think you have to go by which era. This is what I've come to realize. With Van Halen tone, like, I won't get into it because I talk about this all the time, but I seriously think Van Halen 1, obviously the Super 70 pickup that was in the Destroyer was Alnico 8, which is real, it's got some real wah to it. And then I think the pickup very well could have been the Super Distortion or the Mighty Might. Can't prove that, but I think during the recording it's quite possible, just from research I've done and stuff like that. So, and then by Van Halen 2, I think he'd moved away from that, and probably what was in the guitar at that point was the 9K Seymour Duncan rewound PAF that maybe lived in that guitar for a little while at that point, maybe for at least a year or two. Because then we get into 1980. That's the Van Halen 2, 79, right? Then we get into 1980 or so, and you see a double cream pickup in the Frankie guitar. What the hell was that? There's a double cream in there. It's probably could have been a DiMarzio that was rewound, or could have been a PAF. We just don't know, And then there's a black pickup in there not too long after that. Once he'd just done the, the full. Remember, if anybody's seen around 79 when he had a telly pickup in the middle and not the switch, it's crazy, and the weird, bar here holding the pot on before he'd put the pick guard on and all that. Is that strange transitional period where he'd painted the guitar red and everything, but it still had the Strat bridge, just like this one on it. And there's actually a telly pickup in the guitar. And then for a minute there was a cream double humbucker in the bridge. We don't know what it was, The thing is, he was changing stuff so much. That's the constant change. So it's really hard to say, for his particular tone, what he was doing, because I think he was experimenting with everything: ceramic magnets, hotter pickups, PAFs with probably Alnico 2. The pickup that Duncan rewound was supposedly an Alnico 2 that evidently Seymour would do the certain wind where he would put as much, I guess it's 42 gauge wire, I think, on the coil as possible. So slightly thicker wire. He would wrap the pickup full, and he would do a certain wind pattern in order to get the pickup that full and sort of as hot as he could with that wire. And it would end up about 9K, about as hot as you can get a PAF, I guess, with that wire. And it was Alnico 2, evidently. So that's, to me, probably Van Halen 2, was probably that thing. But we don't know. I go by my ear. So, what else we got here? Eddie said in an interview 30 years ago, he waxed dip pickups, but that a lot of them melted. That's right, Prince Westerberg. And that he experimented with, magnets in DiMarzios. So he was taking super distortions and putting, Alnico magnets in them, things like that. That's interesting, because then you end up with a 13 point whatever K pickup that's got an Alnico magnet in it, and with those different hex pole pieces, and supposedly that's what he did in the yellow and black guitar, but I don't think that he ever recorded with that guitar. That's another thing about it, So it's interesting. Yeah, he says that John says he loves the PT Plus, just needs a bit more push while keeping the note clarity and definition. Warmth and PAF-ness is a must. Well, the funny thing is that as you wind, this is what I found, because we wound a bunch of Thornbucker Plus prototypes, right? And when we went any hotter than what we wound it to, we lost the note clarity and definition that you're talking about with that magnet. So I'm a firm believer that if you do Alnico 4, you can't go hotter than what we did, or it starts to sound not like the magic of that pickup, which is that beautiful kind of, Thornbuckers are known for being kind of clear, but without being harsh. That PAF-y, thing that they do, you start to lose that top end as maybe the resonant peak or whatever, the pickup drifts lower as you wind it hotter, and then the combo of that with the magnet, it just doesn't sound the same anymore. So I went, no, let's stop at the 8, because we wound one 50 millimeter to 9K, and it was too far. It just didn't sound right to me. I don't know. I might think differently now. That was a few years ago, but that's what I heard at the time. So we went to 8.7K, which is kind of a, there's so many things that affect the sound of a pickup and the output. That's not really, you can't really go by the ohms, whatever. But anyways, Stan Muso1 is up there in the super chat as well. And he says, thoughts on a Mojitone solderless Strat pickup harness to try different pickups I have. It also has the treble bleed mod as stock. I think that sounds like a good idea. I mean, it's going to give you a good idea of what different pickups sound like, and it's easier to plug them in and out. So I would have no reservations about that. That the type of treble bleed, that can be a subjective thing, like whether it's just the cap or cap resistor or the whole, so you can mess with that. But there's a lot, that's the part of the fun, Joe says Seymour did a lot of pickup winding for Van Halen. Yeah, they had, various, I think working relationship over the years and stuff. And I think he definitely did that, that one PAF that ended up in the guitar for a minute. That was probably, to me, the Van Halen 2 sound, where it got rawer and a little cleaner. And it definitely sounds like a PAF on that record to me. That just sounds like PAF tone through a cranked Marshall. There's nothing, it's an amazing sounding record, Van Halen 2, I think. So, this is interesting. George says any PAF above 7.6K doesn't sound good. It could be. I mean, the PAF that's in my 335, or also the patent number, because it's got a patent number and a PAF, they're real low. They're around that 7.6, something like that, and it's got so much character, that guitar. So if you want that thing, I mean, it's not much hotter than a single coil, really. But that's originally what they were going for, with the PAF. It wasn't supposed to be like a hotter pickup. It was supposed to be a quiet pickup. I think they went, yeah, we basically like the sound of these P90s. Just can you make the same thing without the noise? And that was how they did it. So of course they did end up sounding a little bit different, for sure, but they weren't supposed to be a hell of a lot, that's the thing, is that I lost my train of thought. What is the thing? Of course the tone changed a little bit, but the output, I remember what I was going to say. When you listen to a great, like my 335, it's got chime and clarity and stuff. It doesn't sound worlds apart from, a P90 or, really. So when pickups got hotter later, and also balance coils and stuff happened, and that sort of tends to darken the sound a little bit. And it's a different thing. It's a legit sound too, but it's just different. What are my thoughts on Fender Strats with Floyd Roses? Well, I was talking to Phil X the other day, and he was mentioning that he's not crazy about basswood bodies on guitars, because he was saying that they don't have any low end. I think that could be true, but I was also mentioning, of course, don't rule out because we were talking about super Strats with Floyds, and I said, don't rule out the Floyd, because I think that Floyd does, Eddie talked about this a lot, that they don't they don't have as much bottom end as a Strat with a traditional Strat bridge. So that's the only thing. The tone can change a little bit, but a Floyd is a Floyd, and it's a special kind of thing, and it's fun to have one on a guitar. So obviously Eddie made it work, and he stuck with it over the years. He seemed real kind of like, when they talked to him in 79, he was trying it, or 80 in that one interview. What do you think? I like it and I don't, was what he said. I still like to record with a traditional Fender bridge because, but then he pulled, he went the distance, and on his main guitar, he put a Floyd. He must have liked it. So that'll all make up the tone in other ways. And that's the other thing I was going to say about Eddie. By 83 or 4, who knows what the hell he was using? JB, I think, happened, as well as 59s. I think Duncan was sending him pickups for those Kramers and stuff, because evidently DiMarzio looked at the pickup in the Kramer when he was doing the pickups for the EVH Axis Music Man, signature model or whatever, and it was a JB. It was broken. One coil was messed up, but it was a JB. So that he was using JBs for a while. So, and I think that could have happened by fair warning. The weird thing is with his tone is that by 82 or 83, if you watch some of those shows on YouTube, listen to, like, there's one in Fargo, I think, and another one somewhere else. There's some in Sao Paulo, I think, that are online, and you can hear the sound pretty clear, and there's no gain, like very little gain. It sounds like a split coil. Go check it out if you haven't. And it's like really low gain. And I think he was using something broken around that time, pickup wise. I wouldn't be surprised if around fair warning, this is just pure hypothesis, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was using a JB or something around fair warning, and then that pickup broke, and then he just left it in the guitar for Diver Down. And then by 1984, there was maybe something else going on. Who knows, And then okay, so this is my mind. I can't believe we think about this stuff that much, but did the pickup from that guitar make it into the 5150 guitar? And that's the one DiMarzio saw all those years later that was broken in 91. I can't believe I'm an insane person. Anyways. Joe says that he changed the magnet in a Mule to Alnico 5. So a Mule is an Alnico 4 pickup that is probably pretty close to a Thornbucker, but he says not much of a difference. But it must be a bit of a difference. Because when we were doing the Thornbucker, we were comparing it to an SSV that was around the same strength. And the SSV definitely had a brighter, kind of hotter edge to it, which wasn't what I really wanted in the Thornbucker at the time. I was going for, a different thing. I was going for the ultimate sort of PAF set, a little more vintage sound. We're talking about PAFs, but I know I was going for like the balance, a real clear neck pickup with an Alnico 5 magnet that's real low wind, and then a hotter bridge pickup, but with a warmer magnet, so that they balance out when you flip the switch and get in the middle position, get all the Jimmy Page goodness, right? That's what I was going for with those, really. 635 people online. You guys are amazing. I love that you're here every week. Thanks for joining me. And what else do we got here? Let's see. Arthur says that I know a guy who has one of Eddie's first guitars made by Grover Jackson. It's a Strat body loaded with, wait for it, a Carvin pickup. It has his hand-drawn diagram under the pickup plate. That's interesting. I mean, did Eddie use it in any of the guitars that Grover, though? Was that a thing? Like, I don't know. What I'd love to know is what was in those other guitars around. We always drift around Eddie Van Halen, don't we? But the Rude guitar and the Circles guitar, what went in those guitars? Well, I don't know anything about really what those guitars were made out of, although I think I've played the Circles guitar because I think it became the Rasta guitar, didn't it? And Dweezil has it, and I've played it. So I should know what it's made out of, but because I should have looked at it that day when I played it. Anyways, blah, blah, blah. But I'd love to know what pickups he was using in those guitars. Like what was he just putting in the stage guitars around fair warning? What were they? Yeah. All right, let's move all the way to the end of the chat. I'm sorry if I've missed a bunch of comments, questions, etc. Ask again, please. Make it easy on me. Yeah. Eddie's Floyd was flat to the body, no cutout below. That's true. And that's what the 1971 quarter was for, supposedly, so they could have the bridge, you know, not tilted back, but maybe sitting on the quarter, I think. I don't know, which we never really saw him do. He seemed to move the quarter out of the way because maybe it didn't work. I don't know, but it was still cool. The quarter was on there. Yeah. What kind of Strat is that you're holding? It's a 64, November 64 Fender Stratocaster made in Fullerton, California. Yeah. And I bought from Groomed in 2007. I think I picked up this guitar the same day. It was a good day. You know when you recognize good days in your life and you're like, this is a good day. Same day that Peter Frampton came down and sat in with us when I was playing with Chris Cornell at some place on 2nd, I guess, in Nashville. Interestingly, I recognized the street from where that crazy guy like blew up the, you know, his motorhome or whatever a little while ago, first thing in the morning, right across the street from that club that we played that day. But anyways, yeah, I remember going down to Groomed for a couple days in a row and playing this guitar and playing some other Strats and stuff and trying to decide if it was a lot of money and trying to decide if I could afford it and all that stuff. And taking Yogi with me and then going, I'm going to do this. And I did it. And then I think that was the day that also that, you know, probably headed back after getting the guitar to sound check with Peter Frampton. That's a good day. Come on. Magic days that happen in our lives. We will never get back there again, but it was a lot of fun. I'm thankful for these experiences. He came down, he sat in because he'd done a version of Black Hole Sun and won a Grammy for it, an instrumental version. So the version we played of it that night, Peter came out and played, you know, we played the intro and then Peter came in and played the melody, the first verse melody. And then we did the first verse again with Chris singing. He walked out and sang. So it was really cool. And then we just, you know, finished the tune out and it was amazing. Rick Logan says, live, do you mic your cabs or use an attenuator or emulator? I'm sorry, I just missed that, but I'm going to come back. Catch you, Rick, here. Thanks for doing the super chat. I do appreciate it. Live, do you mic your cabs or use an attenuator or emulator? What brand, if you do? I've done both, Rick, in recent years. Both. I think the last tour I did, my cab was mic'd, but we didn't use the mic in the house, I don't think, or for any of the recordings, which there's plenty of them up on YouTube. So you can hear the PT-15, actually just the direct out in those YouTube videos from the Classic Rock Show that I did. If you search Classic Rock Show 2020, you can see some of the videos and hear my amp. So I had the cab on stage, and yeah, the engineers, many times they want to put a mic on it just in case, or, you know, and then they'll end up hearing the DI and go, that sounds great. Let's just use that. It's easy. There's no bleed. Let me think. In Japan, with Yoshi Nagabuchi, it's just 257s on two PT 212 horizontal cabs, the original for the 100. I've got two of those over there, as well as two heads that have been there for 5 years. And that's been my rig over there if I go over and I play with that gentleman. And yeah, it's just 257s, and that's what they've been using over there. No speaker emulation or anything like that. 2016 tour I did with Michelle Polnareff. Gosh, a number of years ago now. It's 5 years ago. It's crazy. But I used two PT100 heads, two rented 412 cabs on stage just from stage monitor. I kept the amps pretty low, so it wasn't too loud or anything. But then I ran through two Torpedo Lives from Two Notes and using them just for as IR hosts, essentially, because I didn't have the PT-15 then or reactive loads with the, you know, with the speaker sim in them or anything. So I was using in the rack the two Torpedo Lives and just taking the line out to the PA, and that's what was in the PA for that tour. So I've done a little bit of both, you know. It's mics. It just depends on the gig, I guess. Yeah. Chris Quinn says the circle guitar was mahogany, I think, thicker than a regular Strat. You know, I think you're right, and I think that's what became the Rasta guitar when he repainted it. I'm pretty sure. And I remember the guitar being kind of thick, and maybe I'm just forgetting that. I should have taken a picture of it that day because I have a picture with Dweezil's Hendrix Strat that used to belong to Frank. I got to play that guitar that day too, so it was a really cool day of playing different guitars, that's for sure. But I remember thinking, oh yeah, this is the thick one, you know, that, and it had the X2N and the bridge and stuff that it ended up in there. It's interesting. Pete, do you have an SG? I do. And on that note, I actually used my SG, which is a run-of-the-mill US SG. Just a sec here. I'll get it. Okay, I'm juggling guitars here. Let's not drop anything. That would be embarrassing on a show. Hang that one up. Don't fall. Stay there. Be nice. Behave. There's my SG. This was a guitar I got maybe around 99 or something, and I still have it. And it's just a run-of-the-mill US, but it actually plays great. And coming on Tuesday, I think I'm going to put it out. We did a EL34 shootout. So it's Friedman. It was actually his idea. He said, let's do an EL34 shootout. And he went and bought a whole bunch of tubes. So he ordered everything that's currently available. So all the stuff from the new sensor, the old Reflector Factory, the Mike Matthews stuff. So it's EH, Tongue Soul, new production Mullard, new production Svetlana, all those brands that Mike Matthews, bought up the names and makes, and all that good stuff. A set of JJs as well, which you can still get. They've been notoriously unreliable lately, but you can get them. And then we also threw an old set of SEDs in there, the original Svetlana from St. Petersburg that I've had around forever. Excuse me. And some Mullards, original Mullard XF3s, original RFT Siemens, the small bottle. I've got a bunch of pairs of those, and so does he. So, what else? 6CA7 from EH. The modern EH EL34 as well. I didn't mention that. We did those. And last but not least, for certain, the Sylvania 6CA7, of course, the favorite of Eddie Van Halen. So all in that 50-watt Marshall and all biased correctly. I ran the amp to him every time, right? Because his shop is close. So, we rebiased them every time. And then I played some AC/DC through the tubes with the amp on about 6. Set the tone controls right, got a really cool rock tone, and then everything on 10, and I did some Van Halen. So that video is coming on Tuesday, I think. Maybe Wednesday. Tuesday or Wednesday, it'll be out. EL34 shootout. So you can hear all those modern tubes against all the old tubes. Let your ears be the judge. That's the goal. And I think you will enjoy it. But anyways, I digress. I used the SG for the AC/DC in the video, and it sounded great. I always had problems keeping this guitar in tune, and yesterday, listen, it's still in tune. It's like, what did I play? Yeah. That song. Rock and Roll Damnation. And I didn't tune it once for all those changes, and I kept picking it up and being like, it's still in tune. So anyway, it's a good SG. It's not an amazing SG, but it's a good SG. So, yeah, watch the EL34 video this week. What year is that SG? I think it's 99. Let me see. We're 2000. 2, 3, yeah, it's 2000. For those that I had, Josh Freese hit me up the other day, the amazing drummer, Josh Freese, and he's got an old Silverburst Les Paul, and he asked me, what year is this? Do you know? And I said, what's the serial number? Because he wasn't able to figure it out. And I said, in most, I think, mid-70s, through 2000s, you can date Gibsons by the 1st and 5th serial number, and this one is 00. So the first number and the 5th number that's stamped. And that doesn't go for every Gibson, but I think it's definitely this era, and it's 00. So this would be 2000. So I think I got it around 2000 or 99, 2000. So I thought I had it in 99 because I thought I used it on a tour then, but maybe not. Maybe I got it in 2000. So it's 21 years old. It's crazy. It's crazy. Did I miss a super chat right now? Oh, there we go. Any tube swat suggestions? Marshall Plexi style. I got a 5-watt and it's super low and heavy. Tried EQ pedal, no go. Are you talking about what are the power tubes? And as far as preamp tubes go these days, one I tried recently that's really nice is the new JJ E83cc, not to be confused with the ECC83, which is a different tube. So the newer E83, just remember E83cc, that tube sounds really good. as well as the new 7025s from EH. That's a nice tube as well, a little bit less gain. I found that the E83cc, it's really similar to those old Tesla, this tube of the same name, I think, the real short plate one. So you could try those. You can also find the Chinese, you know, 9th generation, whatever, the the 12X7B, still at some tube vendors, but they're getting more expensive and stuff because they're not making them right now. So there's an issue with the factory, and that's a problem. So check that out if you get a chance, you know, to look for these different tubes to see what you see. But I love the, generally speaking, a good modern tube is that Chinese 12X7B, but they're, you know, get them while you can, because they're getting more difficult to find. If you just need them for 1 amp, just buy a couple or whatever and give them a try. But those are my favorite 12X7s right now. Never a fan of the JJE80 or ECC83, the one that's been out forever. I hate that tube, but honestly, it sucks. I'd rather use Sovtek 12X7 WBs. The Sovtek 12X7 LPS, the long plate one, works nice in phase inverter, but not in every amp. Evidently, it can be unreliable in some amps. But I've run them in my SL68 for years, and I always think it's a really good sounding tube for the phase inverter. So there's a few suggestions. Hopefully helpful. I hope. Inti is in Amsterdam. Love that town. What do you think about the tone of Scott Henderson's Strat compared with your own Strat tone? Scott, you know, is an amazing guitar player and a good friend of mine, and we geek out and talk a lot, which is a thrill for me because he's unbelievable. I don't know what he wants to talk to me for, honestly, but he's an amazing guitar player. If you never watched the Tim and Pete show with Scott Henderson, check it out because it's awesome. He gives up a bunch of his really cool tricks, how he plays with his finger a lot and kind of sticks the pick, you know, he's using his middle finger to pick a lot, which is interesting, I think. He rolls the tone control down a lot on his bridge pickup and tries to match kind of the bridge pickup sound with some of his other, you know, his other pickups, middle and neck. And so he said in the show, if you watch it, when he switches, he wants it not to be so obvious when you switch, almost like did he switch? Did he not switch from pickup to pickup, you know? So he rolls his tone down a lot, tone control for the bridge pickup to warm it up. So that's all very interesting, I think. And he gets amazing guitar sounds. It's uniquely him, though, you know? It's his voice. It's like what it sounds like. I love the sounds he gets. So I want to make one point here. Jay says Tad's tube amp doctors are pretty solid tubes. Okay, here's the thing, because there's still a lot of misconception about this stuff. Tube amp doctor, they do great work and everything. They're great, but they're like a Groove Tubes. They are a rebrander. So it's important to note this, that Tad or somebody said to me, you need to check out the premium select tubes from the tube store, I think it was .com. You know, check out those tubes. Those are great. They're just rebranded the same stuff. So in other words, they're either JJ or they're coming from Sovtek, you know, the reflector plant. So you got all these tubes coming out of that plant. That plant, I say in the video, the EL34 video that's coming out this week, I mentioned that, like, you are talking about 2 tube factories right now. JJ, that's in Slovakia, and then the reflector, it's called something else now, but it's the old reflector factory that is the, you know, Sovtek, EH, Mike Matthews, and all the brands that he's bought up and is producing different, you know, slightly different variations of tubes under Mullard, Tungsol, Gold Lion. He owns all these names now. And, you know, he did up pretty boxes for them all and stuff and stamps the tubes with, and they're slightly different variations on the, but they're all coming out of that one factory in Russia. So Tube Amp Doctor is buying those tubes and then they're testing them and then rebranding them as Tube Amp Doctor, TAD Select, whatever. It's still a JJEL34 or whatever, you know, the different, you know, there's only a couple factories that make tubes. That's it. And they're all coming out of those same. So it's crazy, but, and I guess that's not a clear thing, you know, not bagging on you, Jay, just kind of making it clear that the maybe you already know that stuff, but I'm just making the point that there seems to be some that, like, people are like, oh yeah, Tube Amp Doctor, they make great tubes. They don't make any tubes. They buy tubes, test them, match them, rebrand them, sell them. Important thing. Jimmy Jack Jones says there's only like 3 or 4 tube factories. I mean, really, to be honest, dude, at this point, it's like 2. I mean, there's others, okay, sure, that produce tubes for hi-fi and stuff like that primarily. But there was the big, the Chinese tube factory that made all the, EL34B, STR, their 12X7 and all that. But they had a problem there. I think allegedly, I think it was a fire. Something happened, and then we're going to rebuild it and set up shop somewhere else or whatever. There's just no information coming out of there as to when that's going to happen. So it's supposed to be this year, but who knows, with what's going on and stuff like that. The folks I've talked to say, yeah, we can't get any information. So right now you're really dealing with, as far as guitar amp tubes, 2. That's it. 2 factories, Slovakia, JJ, and the old reflector plant in Russia making the Mike Matthews stuff. So yeah, Beer Hounds Beer Reviews says like Ruby Tubes. Ruby Tubes is another rebrander and tester. So they're buying tubes from JJ, they're buying tubes from Sovtech, Mike Matthews, all the different, and they'll rebrand them. Sometimes they'll put their own thing on the base that says, Tube Amp Dr. Select or whatever, and they'll test them and sometimes rate them and put, they put a number on them like Groove Tubes used to sometimes to be like, these are 5s or these are, all that's doing is like, if you buy, that's a helpful thing. Like if you used to buy from Groove Tubes and you get EL34s number 5s or whatever, and you had bought that number before in that particular type of tube, it just meant you could pull the old ones out and put the new ones in without rebiasing, because they would bias at about the same spec. So you could, and that's the thing that Mesa used to do as well. They sort of fixed the bias of the amps. They made it non-adjustable. And then you would have to buy tubes from Mesa. It's kind of brilliant in a way, because they would test tubes that would, because you can put a tube in an amp, one EHEL34 or whatever, put it in there and it'll bias up to 16 milliamps. You pop another one in and it'll go to 40. And then you got to turn the bias pot on your Marshall or whatever to set it to 32 for the low one and the top one. Well, you can buy a whole bunch of tubes and then test them all and find ones that just sort of, if okay, this one biases up the same. You put it in, okay, we're set at 32 on the milliamps or whatever on the bias pot. This one biases up to 32. Get another one, put it in. Oh, this one's about 31. Okay, that's cool. So we'll call both of these number 5s. Does that make sense? Like, and so, that makes it so that, and then you could take a whole bunch of other ones that would normally at that bias setting, if you put in another one, go, oh, this is shooting up to 40 or whatever. Okay, we'll call those number 8s, because now if you set the amp for 32 for that one, you get to find another one that is at number 8. Does that make sense? Like, I hope I'm explaining that easy enough to understand, but that's how Groove Tubes would do those numbering things. And same thing with Mesa they would do color codes, I think, like blue dots, as long as you got the other ones with the blue dots, then you were good, So, yeah. Somebody's up there. Sweet Sound of Thunder is up there in the top chat. Where is it? I'm missing it. There it is. Love your videos. Thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks for doing the super chat. Talking about SG, I'm restoring a late 60s one. Poor thing was only a slab of wood when I found it. Any suggestion for a nice pickup set? Thornbuckers. Oh, Thornbuckers. You say it's rather bright. It's going to sound great with the Alnico 4 in the bridge. Not that they're dark, but they're clear without harshness. So I would put a set of Thornbuckers in there without reservation. Honestly, that's what I would do. Other brands, because I don't want to sound like I'm just shilling for my own pickups, or I'll take heat. I'm liking what I'm hearing from the Rewind folks. That's a nice boutique, or the Wiz PAFs. Those sound good. I'm purely going here by what I've heard online. Stuff that's easy to get. It's hard to go wrong with a set of Antiquities, which are Alnico 2 PAFs. I got those in a Les Paul years ago before I ever knew anybody to make my pickups and stuff like that. And they're nice, So Duncan Antiquities, even a good old Duncan. Well, I'm not going to go as far as to say a 59 would give you what you want, because you're saying you want, and they're kind of bright, actually. Seth Lovers would be probably good for that guitar. But honestly, I think you'd be really happy with Thornbuckers. True story. There's so many pickups out there now, like boutiques, just like pedals. You've got the Wolf Tones and the, there's just like a ton. Bare Knuckle, there's tons. Joe says that he put an RFT tube in V2 of his 2203, great for thicker gain. The RFT 12AX7s are a nice tube that Marshall used for a long time as well. That's a East German made, real decent 12AX7. They sound great across the board for Marshalls. They're a little on the, they're gainy and they're a little on the warmer side. Cool. Blue Fire says, what are my thoughts on using a reactive load IR for live shows versus traditional way? Well, that's exactly what I did on the last tour. So if you want to hear it, because my amp has the reactive load IR built in, right? The PT15. So watch the classic rock shows from 2020. If you go on YouTube and search classic rock show 2020, what will pop up is a bunch of the videos that we did, and you can hear my tones on stuff like, Van Halen and The Who and different songs that we did, and you can hear what my amp sound. That's the direct sound right out of my amp with the reactive load IR. And the only thing is that my IRs are unique to my amp, but they're similar to what you get in the reactive load IR, and you can always get different ones and load them in there. They make them so you can change them. So it works awesome, man. I have no reservations about recommending going for that setup, Tube amp Doctor, EL34B STR and balanced phase inverter and Mullard style from TAD as well in my RK100. Couldn't be happier. Only looking for a nice V1. So those tubes are the Chinese made. The Tube amp Doctor EL34B STR, what came out of the Chinese factory that I was mentioning, isn't operating right now because they had an issue of some sort, a fire, we think. But those are a well-regarded tube that nice full bottom. And I actually have those tubes in my Germino right there. That's what it came with. So it's got the BSTRs in it. They're cool. Bottom end. They got more bottom than some of the small bottle like the EH and stuff like that, which are more sort of mid-centric. Once again, for those just joining, I've got a big EL34 shootout that we did that is super cool. I think super cool if you're a geek. Listen with headphones or good studio monitors. Don't listen on your phone or you're not going to hear any difference. But you can actually, if you watch my 12AX7 video that I did a little while ago, I think there's more of a difference with the EL34s, which I found kind of interesting. But there's definite differences between the EL34s that if you listen closely, you're going to hear, and you direct AB, kind of jump around, you're going to hear it. So that video should be out. I'll either put it out Tuesday morning because I think I should be done with it Monday night, or Wednesday morning. So tons of EL34s, including new, old stock ones, as well as all the new stuff that you can currently get right now. We didn't do the EL34B STR because that's one of the Chinese tubes that you just can't find right now. So I wanted to make it mostly about the stuff that you could go online and order at Doug's Tubes or the Tube Store or whatever right now and make an informed decision. So, yeah. Let's see here. Shiny Beast makes a bad recommendation here. Biasing is for ninnies. Set the amp up hot, put them in. When one blows, change it. I wouldn't recommend doing that. That's a waste of money. And I'm sure he's being facetious. But yeah, that's kind of the way that we were talking about that the other day when people used to complain about their Marshalls always breaking and how things were unreliable. And I popped a lot of transformers and this happened and that happened. Nobody used to bias and nobody used to match. So you could pop a set of tubes in an amp, and like I say, one would go up to 40 milliamps and the other one would be at 14, and people would just plug them in. And if one red plated, they'd pull it out and put another one in. And it was just like all bets are off. Maybe some cool tones were had that way out of that mismatch. But one thing that happened was things were notoriously unreliable and people used to blame them a lot on the amps. And the truth is, with a good old Marshall, if it's maintained and it's in good shape and it's biased with a good set of tubes that are, that are proven reliable and tested and stuff like that, no problems, So a lot of the stuff that people used to do is what contributed to the, the problems. So, yeah. Money Hurts asking if I've been pedaling. I bought a new bike. I bought this Cannondale bike that I love, and I haven't been riding it actually for the last couple of weeks. I've been slacking off, but this week I've got this video done for Tuesday or Wednesday. It's basically done, the tube video. So I think I will take a day this week, maybe Tuesday or something, and I can take a day off or whatever and go bike riding. So I'm not going enough. I want to go more. Yeah. Oh wow. Prince Westerberg says,
I worked for Audio Note, who bought a load of Mullard valve gear. One day they got a phone call saying the storage building was gone. It had been demolished. That's awful. Wow. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. The machinery was proprietary. And the folks that knew how to use it are very, very old, if not gone at this point. So I think a lot of the tube, right? Like when we think about it, the manufacture of tubes, how many people are still in practice kind of know how to do that stuff that are still around? I mean, most of the people are going to be at that Russian factory or at JJ or in China, where they were working there every day, like doing, they're making tubes all the time and stuff. And a lot of that knowledge just gets lost as people get older and they pass away or don't pass it on or just get out of practice and don't do it anymore. It's like, so the folks that are making, I think what you're going to find with this tube video, the EL34 video, is that much like the 12AX7 video, there's great modern options that sound really good. I'll tell you, but just a spoiler, the good old EL34, which I've liked for a long time, is a great tube that they're very reliable and they sound good and they sound really, really close to the old Siemens RFT small bottle, which is one of my favorites. It's a different, it's a kind of like compact. They don't have a huge bottom end, but like a quintessential Marshall sound, to me, they do sound like, you get into the 6CA7s and stuff like Van Halen used, and it's you're scooping the sound a little bit more, and you get a big bottom end and stuff, so slightly different sound, but it's a great sound. But the quintessential Marshall mid-range, leaving room for the bass and all that small bottle EL34, the Siemens, they were always a great tube. RFT Siemens, East German made tube, and that's really what the EH copies, I think. I mean, they look really, really close, and you watch the video and you tell me what you think. I'm interested. I want to hear the opinions because they're so close. So, L. Scott Music said GrooveTube did rebrand, but Aspen's main thing was matched pairs. Yeah, matching pairs, and also, GrooveTube's was never one to kind of like shy away from saying where the tubes came from. They would call the 12AX7 R2, meaning Russian 2 or whatever, right? Like this is they would have R1, R2, R3, I think, right, Lauren? I think where it was like, this is this version of this is a Sovtech WA, this is a WB, this is an LPS, this is a WXT plus, the different Russian Sovtechs or whatever, they always put the R designation, right? And for the Chinese tubes, there was a C. So Aspen was never, I feel like with some of the other companies, they just kind of don't, I'm not saying they're pulling the wool over people's eyes, but they don't really publicize or make it known sometimes that, certainly on some of these sites like the Tube Store and stuff, they will just say our preferred series EL34 or whatever they call it is a fantastic copy of the old Mullard blah blah blah, and they almost make it sound like they're making it, and that's not true, right? It's like, no, it's just the same damn tube that you guys bought, tested, sure, matched, but you're making it sound almost like you're producing them. If you hard press them, I'm sure they would say, no, these come from this other factory, but they don't. Aspen was more clear about that it was like, we are buying these tubes, testing them, and Aspen was like always trying to, had aspirations of building, making tubes in the US and had some gear and stuff like that, but never really came to fruition, right? Preston Smith says 2, I thought there were 3 factories left. Well, China was the other one, right, Preston? But they had an issue at their factory, and so you can't get Chinese EL34s right now or 12AX7s. I mean, you can find them still at some dealers if they've got old stock, but something happened a year or two ago, and the factory kind of went offline. It's like, oh, we're setting up another one and it'll be out, we'll be back in business soon, but none of that's happened. So it's China. We don't have any, insight into what's going on over there. So it's anybody's guess when it's going to happen. Rick says, last question, Alnico blues or Celestion greenbacks in a Vox AC30? Blues all day long. The greenback's cool, but it's a different sound and it's not the quintessential AC30 thing. Still sounds great. It's just a different thing. For me, when I think AC30, I want an AC30, so I want that sound. Sweet Sound of Thunder, I didn't miss you. There you are. You did the super chat. Thanks for doing that. Appreciate it. Thanks to all you guys for doing the super chat. Thank you very much. It's going to contribute to my coffee machine so it can be fueled and talk really fast and come here on Sundays and do this because it's fun. Hello, love your videos. Talking about SG, oh, wait, I did this already. Shit. See, that's what happens when you have too much coffee. Sure, you think fast, but sometimes you get jumbled in your brain. And repeat questions. Have you tried JJ EL34s? Yes. And JJs were what we used in the PT100. As a matter of fact, that PT100 right there would have JJs in it. For a number of years, the JJ was the stock tube used in Friedman amps, used in Sir amps. You know, that's what they came with. And then all of a sudden, the EL34 started getting sketchy for some reason, popping tubes. And when you order, you know, a whole bunch of tubes, and then all of a sudden you're getting, you know, half the box of tubes is going bad on you. It's a big problem for production, trying to, you know, got customer complaints, and you know, you can only burn them in and test them so much before you got to ship an amp. So once you get a certain amount of, oh, there's a lot of these failing, it can be a real problem. So we moved away in the SIRS to the EH a while back, and I gotta say, I have no reservations about that. You're gonna hear, though, in the EL34 video, the difference between the JJ and the EH, and they both sound good and they sound different, pretty markedly different, I think. You know, you'll notice in the JJ, a full low end and a bit more in the 2K range. Some people thought they sound harsh sometimes, the JJs, but I hear it as just like, it's cool. It's like, so in a way, it's closer to the Mullard than the EH, which is closer to the Siemens RFT. So the small bottle, you know, this is a different sound. And I think if you guys listen close, you'll tell me I'm crazy if you want, but I hear the JJ as being closer to the old Mullard, and I hear the EH as being closer to the RFT. And so depending on what sound you like, you know, it's just a slightly different take. The JJs, I think, sound good. They do sound good. It's a full sound. It's a real, they have more bass and more low mids, and then that slightly aggressive upper mid cut that could be seen as cool, and in the right amp could be just the thing, you know. So it depends. Depends. Yeah. What else we got here? JJKT77, somebody's mentioning. That's one we didn't include that I guess we could have, but it's getting a little further away from the L34 thing. We need a US tube builder. I don't think it's ever going to happen, to be honest. I just don't think so. They would be so expensive too. I would love to see it, you know. I mean, doesn't Western Electric make 300 Bs for and they're like $1,000 a pair or something, you know. I think they are making still some tubes in the US, but it's for the hi-fi thing. Western Electric, right? They make you know, I would love to see. I mean, hey, if you could make a set of EL34s for a quartet for $100 or for even $150, right? For a really well-made US, like a Sylvania, you know, that I would probably buy a quartet of those for my SL68, and you would only need, you know, one, or, you know, I would do it. I think there would be enough support, but I don't think it would be that. I think it would be $1,000 because just there's not the debate, supply and demand, and the demand's not there. And unless you can produce them for super cheap, I mean, you're also dealing with, you know, and before I even say this, I'm a fan of the EPA. But the EPA restrictions and stuff like that make it very difficult to make tubes. That's the reality, right? So, you know, I like protecting the environment, but producing tubes and stuff, it's very difficult these days because a lot of the chemicals used and stuff like that are, you know, it's a difficult thing. So, anyways, more likely a tube factory in Mexico, says Lauren. I think that sounds like a great, like right over the border kind of situation. That might be more realistic. Or a tube factory in, you know, for that matter, I think that what we should be doing is actually propping up the, you know, like JJ, or, you know, like, hey, what do you guys need in order to, you know, what, like to get them to make a real premium, you know, like to support them and the Mike Matthews factory and stuff, and not be, you know, although I kind of, you know, I'm pretty like anti-Russia because I'm a Cold War kid and stuff like that. But, you know, no problems with JJ, that's for sure. Like what would it take to, you know, to really band together and get, you know, the folks still making tubes, or in China at the factory, you know. So I find that the interesting thing is, there's some real, like in China especially, there's some folks that are really geeky about tubes and about mics and things like that, and really into it. It seems like for the right reasons, not for just churning out stuff at the lowest, you know, There's some, you know, folks making premium microphones and premium hi-fi stuff and premium tubes. This pedal, you know, my friend over in China making this pedal, like these guys really care about the way that stuff sounds. So that, you know, if we can get some of those folks like behind the tubes and they have the ability to make them there, like by all means, that's a better, like, you know, wouldn't it be great if we knew there was a really accurate Mullard coming out of the JJ, you know, factory or one of these places. So maybe solid state is more environmentally friendly, says Richard. Well, it is. Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Talking about tooling and stuff, Hobo Roadie. Yeah, it's like the tooling's already there. That's what I'm saying, is they're already set up over there. They've got the people, they've got the knowledge. What would it take to just be like, can you guys make a double getter Mullard XF2 like spot on? Let's do what it takes. And then is there a market like to, you know, can we sell them for $100 a quartet, you know, $75 a pair or $150 a quartet or whatever coming out of the, you know, whatever, but no cutting corners, no nothing. Like it's got to be the friggin' Mullard. You know what I mean? It's got to be spot on. And then would we support that? I would buy some if they had a great reputation. I knew they were super consistent and, you know, I would pay that. Sure. Cause I'm a super nerd. You don't like amp modeling? I like amp modeling. Sure I do. I've got my own amp plugin, the PT100 from Sir and Universal Audio. But, you know, I still love my tube amps. U.S. labor means no way will be a U.S. tube builder. Yeah, labor and, you know, as well as environmental restrictions and stuff like that just make it really difficult to do in this country. So I think that ship has kind of sailed, and that's fine because there's still these other places. What I'm worried about is those other places going away. So let's hope that never happens, you know, at least not in our lifetimes. What about 6L6s? I'm not a huge expert in 6L6s. I'm a kind of, if you look at most of my amps, they're all EL 34, 84. I do have, what have I got that's 6L6? I guess I've got the Soldano down there. But you know what? Really, that amp was designed around those 5881s. I think. Like that was, I think Mike was always using those Sovtech 5881s. And that's a pretty damn good tube. Like, really reliable. It was originally like a Russian military tube, I think, and nobody ever had any complaints about the sound of it. They sound good, and so I think that's what's in those, right? And there were some other good the tubes that Tube Amp Doctor was selling as their 6L6 GC, you know, and GB, a couple different designs that were like pretty accurate RCA copies that were coming out of that Chinese factory. I heard people rave about those. I mean, nobody seemed to have problems with those. So, anyways, God, what's going on with the, sorry, my stupid Adobe updater getting just opening up and for no reason. What the hell, man? I really despise like things popping up on my phone and on my computer just randomly prompting me to do something. It makes me feel like, just like, don't do that, Adobe wankers. All right. What else we got here? KT66 sound awesome in Marshalls. I was never really like a JTM 45. I'd love to have a nice JTM 45. That's one Marshall style amp that I don't own, and I'd love to have a nice I mean, I've got the top hat amplexer that sort of has that front end, but it's the L34, so it's a different thing. It's not too rectified. I'd like a accurate, like maybe Mitch Colby Park. You know, I'd like to get a JTM 45 at some point. Yeah. This gentleman, Mr. Joe Fisher, says hasn't retubed his 5150 Mark II in 22 years. It's going to bite me if I don't do it soon. You know, honestly, I would take it to a good amp tech that really knows their stuff, have them test the tubes and make sure they're still kind of like in spec, like whatever, like not drifted, one's super hot and one's running like really low. Nothing like that, and just leave them in there. If they're working, I was talking about this with Friedman when we were doing the CL34 test. Like he's like, just don't change them. If they work and the amp sounds good, just forget it. Like, you know, it's good to have another set around or be able to, you know, be ready if they blow up, but just, you know, keep them in there, honestly, if they're working these days at this point, you know. Let's see. It's funny. Nobody ever complained about the sound of the Russian military. That's right. Let's hope that it stays that way.
Let's see. Maybe up in Norway they complained about the sound of the Russian military getting a little too close for comfort. Finland or the Arctic. Groove Tubes tried to do US tubes about 15 years ago using Sylvania parts and tooling. Didn't really take off, and there were issues with quality. Yeah, Lauren probably has a little more insight into that than anybody here, but Hell Scott Music. But I know that he definitely had dreams of doing US 6L6s and a 6CA7, I think, and that you know, it never really came to fruition, did it? But you know, it's, you know, it's a difficult thing to difficult undertaking, real difficult undertaking. Okay. As far as somebody was asking about 6L6, like what's a good, I think generally speaking, the JJ 6L6 seems to be pretty damn good and consistent. That's probably what they use in the 5153s, I would bet, is the JJ, I think. You know, I don't know anything about reliability on that tube in particular, but what else? There's an EH 6L6. The original Svetlana 6L6 was supposed to be pretty damn good, I think, if you could find those. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. What else have we got here? Just checked out Eruption and Jump from the Classic Rock Show 2020. Sounds so good. Thanks, man. Yeah, that's just the PT15, you know, with the clinch Echoplex boost in front of it. And I think it sounds pretty damn good. I do. And that's the DI out on the PT15. You know, you're hearing the reactive load IR, essentially. Same sound. Yeah. What else we got here? How do you feel about Korg new tube dual triodes? I talked about this with Kevin Sir a while ago because they've made this kind of available to designers and builders and stuff if anybody wants to mess around with the new tubes so that they could try them in pedals or amps or things. They're quite expensive. As it stands right now, Kevin was saying, well, I could do this like traditional tubes for less than this, you know, for what they're charging for the thing. So I think there's a cost thing there. Yeah, there's a thermal thing where they're not as, you know, but it's a crapshoot whether or not they, you know, those Korg pedals I tried recently. Sorry, the Vox pedals. Is Korg still Vox? I don't think so. Maybe when it comes to pedals. I don't know. Anyway, the Vox pedals I did recently, I did a video for them. What do they call them? Can't remember, but they were the ones with the new tube in them. 4 different pedals, I think, or 3 different pedals that I did a video on, and you can hear them in that. You know, I don't know how tubey they are or not tubey, you know, but it's an interesting thing. I would love, because Kevin's kind of a genius. So I'm talking about Kevin Sir. You know, I'd love to see him get his hands on one of those things to try to build some kind of circuit around it, simple amp, preamp, or something, a front end, you know, and listen to what it sounds like, or a pedal. Would be interesting. But yeah. What is the name of that CKK distortion? You know, I don't know the name, and I'm going to find out the name, but I'm making a video for it soon, within the next 2 weeks. This is it. It's an overdrive, really, more than a distortion. It's an overdrive pedal. I'm not sure. So I'm going to find out. I'm sorry I don't have more info, but it sounds amazing in front of a Marshall for pushing the Marshall, which is what they told me to do. Put this in front of a Marshall, and they were like, it's all, you know, killer rock tone. I tried it. It's great. So anyway, it's a limited edition because it's made with vintage chip that he only has like 160 of or something. So there's only going to be like 150, 160 of those made. So I'll find out. Video coming within a couple of weeks. I'm going to split pretty soon. It's 1:40. I've been going an hour or 2 hours and 10 minutes, I think. So, oh no, 2:03 because I was late. That's right. Okay, never mind. I'll be around for another 10 minutes here or so, and then I'll go. What else we got? I'm just getting hungry. Time for lunch. Prince Westerberg says the Western Electric. You've got some good tube info, my friend. He says the Western Electric reboot found the last of the internal wire for 300Bs, and it was the only roll ever made. It took 3 years to copy the Metalor G to remake the WE 300Bs. That's really interesting. So that's why they charge so much for them. Because yeah, I think. Let's take a look really quick and see how much they are. Interested. For folks that are interested in a US tube, and that's how much they cost. These are, you know, 300Bs, which are more money anyway, but they're a hi-fi tube
Western Electric 300B, the original WE 300B vacuum tube, quality handmade in the USA. So these are being made. Return of a classic. How much? Holy hell. They're $3,000 for a quad. $3,099 to be exact. Match pair for $1,499. That is some crazy shit. But you know, it's beluga caviar, and that's the only place you're going to get them. They're made in the United States, and they're stamped right on them. Made in USA, 300B. It's R&D you're paying for, and that's the only place you're going to get them. They have a 5-year warranty. Wow, that's impressive. So there you go. That's making tubes in the US. Now the 300B was always a more expensive tube than, isn't that amazing? I'm going to check out this website a little bit more later. I would be, could they make these? Could they make a 12AX7 or EL34, and how much would they be? I would love to know. Frequently asked questions. What is the useful life expectancy? 40,000 hours for $3,000. You get 40,000 hours out of your quartet. How do they compare with those manufactured in the past? Wow, they've been made since 1938 to one spec, it says. That's amazing. We rely on historical quality standards, proven manufacturing techniques, et cetera, to the same spec from ever since 1938. This is interesting. Though we do take advantage of modern times, some things remain the same. The 300B's filamentary cathode core material is derived from a 1963 melt from the Western Electric Hawthorne Works in Chicago. The tooling is also original, some going back as far as 1943. Original tooling. Wow. It's amazing. I mean, it's cool they're making them in the States, but God, that is some cork sniffery, right? It's pretty interesting. Here's a completely different. Somebody makes a good point here. Tellyman says 3K is nothing in the hi-fi world. It's true. The geekery runs much deeper than even us guitar players in the hi-fi world, right? What's your best budget overdrive pedal for a dirty Marshall? Boss. The SD, the Waza one actually is killer for the 80s mod in a box thing. The Waza Super Overdrive, killer. I did a video on it. Check it out. It sizzles. It is hot. It's awesome. A good 808 clone of some sort. Oh, the Bonsai would be great for an 808 style. I mentioned it earlier, from JHS. Terrific. Not too expensive. Does every tube screamer plus the OD1. Peter Evans says, Sunday and Coffee, great show, sir. Thank you, man. Sweetwater link. It's true. Thank you for mentioning that, Peter. You're taking good care of me here. You want to be my manager? In the link in the video description below, there's a link to Sweetwater. It's an affiliate link. So if you need some prime tone guitar picks from your friends at Dunlop, or perhaps you need a patch cable for your amp or your pedals, or perhaps you need there's a great little thing that just happens to be sitting on my desk. It's great to have an isolation transformer around if you all of a sudden want to split the 2 amps using a chorus pedal or something. You're like, oh yeah, I'm going to get a ground loop. Get one of these. This thing's rad. I found this at Sam Ash when I was out doing clinics, and I forgot to bring mine because I have a different one. I was like, oh no, I'm going to get a big old ground loop. So I ran to a Sam Ash and found, and they'll have this at Sweetwater, I'm sure too. But this is just it's called the MLI 11. I don't know what the hell it's called, but it's from Samson. And that's confusing over the MLI. I don't know what that means. Anyway, one side of it's got a 1/4 inch. It's a DI too. It's interesting. It's got an XLR on it. So one side is 1/4 inch in. Actually, it's a combo jack. So you can plug XLR in there. But it's got an ISO transformer in it, is the point. So you can break the ground loop by breaking the ground. The switch right here. And this will work just as good as the Palmer one or anything else. It sounds fine. I bought it, tried it, used it. Great. Fantastic. This thing, I don't know. It was under $30. I think it was like $20 or something like that. Useful. Good trick. You always got to have an ISO transformer around. Usually too. A great one is the Hum Eliminator 1/4 inch in and out 2-channel from Ebtech. That's a great one. I found one used somewhere years ago. And it's got a 1/4 inch in, 1/4 inch out, A and B channels. And that's awesome. Because in my rig, the way that I run it, I need to break the ground in a couple different places. My big live rig, one going to the front end of, actually, that's not true. It's already built into my pedal board, but blah, blah, blah. Never mind. In the effects loop, I use one channel of it in order to break a ground loop that I had there. It's just good to have around an isolation transformer in case you want to do 4-cable method or stereo 2 amps, whatever. So, yeah. Let's see. What else do we got here? Oh, Ben just posted my Sweetwater link. There it is. It's in the video description below. So that helps with my channel for sure. Sweetwater. My friends at Sweetwater. Awesome review of the Eventide micro pitch. Shout out from Toronto. Thanks, man. Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate it. Hope you guys are doing good up there. I know they got a hardcore lockdown going on. There's a lot of Corona happening up there, and not Corona beer. That would be all right, but the other kind happening up there in Toronto right now. So it's rough up there. It is rough up there. I got my first shot this week. This arm, almost 100%. It was 3 days ago. It was a little sore. I was surprised. It was sore, more sore than I thought it was going to be. And I didn't have any side effects other than I think I was tired because it kept me up in the night. About 1 a.m. It was like, damn, kind of hurts. And I was rolling over on my side, and I think I was waking up. Other than that, I feel great. Guitars for Your Project is up there in the super chat as well. And he says, why is your go-to the Atom monitors and not the Barefoots on a regular basis? I use the Barefoots a lot. I probably do use the Atom 60% of the time just because I'm used to them, and they're also a smaller monitor. And that there's something about the monitoring like right in my face where it's like, I don't mind the smaller speaker at a lower volume, you know? And it's still a very full sounding speaker, the Atom. So I just got used to them. I bought them in 2006 and I'm used to the sound. But the Barefoots are a great thing for me to have in here and kind of AB for sure. It's like terrific. You know what it is? I'll mix close like this, sitting at my desk on the Atoms. I'm talking about studio monitors here for those. Sorry, I can jump from one thing to the next. I know. I'll be sitting right here and close, and the Atoms are, right here. I'm touching one of them right now, right? And then the Barefoots are just a little bit further back in their wider space. So I'll tend to turn them on and then check a mix and move about here and listen, And so I'm doing most of my mixing sitting up here with the mouse, and then I'll do my checking a little further back. And what I find is back like this, the bass develops a little bit and gets a little bit truer right here. So I'm listening to the Barefoots and listening to the low end and making sure I haven't gone crazy on the kick drum and the bass guitar and stuff like that. And I'm just moving back a little bit. So that's generally how I do it. If, I guess it's like my main mixing is on the Atoms, and then like I said, I did a little video for Barefoot, and I said you can mix on these and just kind of trust. Well, it's my checking where I back up and I listen, and I'm really listening to the balance, panning, EQ, making sure my low end's not out of control, and I'm really listening to Barefoots. Go, okay, close your eyes and just listen to the mix and really see if everything's kind of sitting in the right place, or if anything's jumping out. I sit right here and I'll listen, and I'll be like, okay, I'm in good shape, or no, I need to change this. So they're my real true sort of like that second reference that I go to, and really listen to the balance. Hope that makes sense. Somebody was asking about making a solid state tube device. Sorry, I just lost it in the chat there. That would sound like tubes. Folks have tried that. There's a Russian company that did it, and there was some other company too that was making like a drop-in replacement that went in a tube. And I think some of them were supposed to be kind of cool. I don't know if anybody had success with that marketing or not. I guess maybe not very much because we don't really hear about them. But yeah. Slaphand says some guys in UK have the old Muller machines and are trying to start up producing tubes again. Check out the Great British Valve Project. I would love to see that happen. I think there was a thread on the Gear page about it. I don't know how far along they've got. I mean, I remember a while ago those tubes from. Did you guys ever see here for you two? Okay, I'll just show you this really quick because it's interesting. I think somewhere here. Where the heck are they? I have looking for tubes. Hold on a second. They're in here. There was a company that was making a 12AX7 in the UK, and they were using me as a beta tester along with some other guys. And they had a different look to them, different than anything I'd ever seen, but they did work. This is my box of goodies here. I see. Yep, there it is. There's one. It's got a shield on it because they were kind of microphonics and they were experimenting with these shields. But this was made in the UK probably 10 or 15 years ago. Can I get the shield off without destroying the tube? They were putting these shields on them to try and I guess they're sort of stuck on there. But anyway, here, can you see that? Not really, but okay. From here you can see it. See the little silver plates on the inside? So these were made in the UK about 10 or 15 years ago, maybe 15 years ago now. And I can't even remember the name of this company, but they were sending me these and getting me to test these, and they were kind of cool. I mean, they sounded pretty good. A little microphonic. Oh yeah, there's the name. What the hell does it say on the side? I had some other ones. Somebody out there is going to know what these are because you guys are geeks. I bet Mr. Westerberg knows what these are. But anyway, they sounded good, and then they just went out of business. They just couldn't keep it going. Something happened, and they just that was that. Here, there's a little Beluga caviar. There's a Telefunken. That's nice in your mic pre. Never really liked these in guitar amps as much, but that's nice in a mic pre. So let's keep them around. What else have I got here? What's this? A Brimar 4024. That's like an AT7, I do believe. Made in the UK. There's a GE something or other. Oh no, Sylvania. No, Joint Army Navy. There's a little US, probably made in the 80s or late 70s. I don't know. I got a few around. I've got this isn't even my box of really good stuff. This is my box of sort of good stuff. There's a reissue Mullard. I don't know. I love this stuff. I keep them around. I recently ordered a whole bunch of kind of new tubes. So I got a bunch of the Sino, Chinese, the ones that I said you can't really get anymore because I like these in my amps. In some, like in the PT 100, pretty much across the board, these are cool if they're tested in low noise. I really like. Some other stuff we got in there. It's not that interesting. Whatever. EL34 video coming this week. That'll be interesting. Hopefully. Oh, there's more folks up there in the super chat. Who is that? Oh, that was the one question about the atoms, which I already answered, I think. And no, I think that's it. I think I got to everybody in the super chat. My niece says, "You people with your ears that work, you kill me." I know that we've got to keep them good so they work for a long time, hopefully. Yeah. So what's this? Think still 3 tube factories. JJ Slovak, the EH in Saratov, Russia, were the 2 factories in China, had the one fire and currently not producing the other Chinese unit. What's that? Okay, but this one producing tubes, they don't make the EL34B STR or the 12AX7, do they, or do they? Because you can't get them right now. Like, they go to all the tube dealers, they're just not. And everybody I've talked to, from Friedman to Sir, Fryat, all these different people are saying, yeah, there's nothing coming out of there right now. So in reality, there's no. If you go to, I think like Doug's and all those places, they might have some old ones or the tube store, but they're not listing the EL34B anymore. You can't get them. So that in essence, in practice, nothing's coming out of China right now. So that's the truth. Okay. What else we got? What else we got? And then I'm going to split here pretty soon. This fella's got a mahogany body Duncan Custom 5 in the bridge, and it's killer, great for heavy rock and stuff, but I want to get a neck and middle for blues and Stratty stuff. Recommendation: single coils. I mean, I just love my main go-to these days in my Surs is the V63. I think it's awesome. So I always like the V60 LP too, but now I think I'm preferring the 63. It's great. Originally started life as the Landau Classic, I think they called it. Yeah. Yeah. Can you tell me what you do with the fingers on the picking hand that don't hold a pick? I use these two. So this one and this one, while I'm holding a pick there, I'll grab the, for instance, if I'm playing the A string with the pick, I'll grab the middle 2 strings with these two, Or if I'm playing the D string, I'll grab the second string and the third string with these two. And that's how I kind of like, I'll do double stops and stuff, but that's what I do. This one is useless. I mean, I could use it, but I don't. At least the way I play guitar. And then I watch people that use it, like my friend Ariana Powell, and I'm like, holy shit, I should be incorporating that. It's crazy, like all the fingers on her hand situation going on. It's like, how do you do that? Bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. Yeah. Are you guys arguing about vaccines because I brought that up? Don't fight, for God's sakes. Not on my show. Be nice. Be nice. Jim says, if tubes go out of production, can someone make a solid state tube that models a glass tube? Yeah, I think that was the one I was coming back to. And I think, okay, Shane says, I'll come right back to that. Shane says the Scream Honey. I think you're right. I think that is the name of this pedal. You're reminding me. The Scream Honey. That's a great name for it because it's sweet and it screams. Makes a Marshall. It's kick-ass, this pedal. So it's really good. I got no reservations. If somebody wants something cool for a Marshall that not everybody's going to have because there's only going to be a few of these made, jump on them and get them. It's bitching. Not easy to get, you know. You have to order them from overseas. I think it's friggin' cool, you know. Talk about stuff. It's probably not that expensive either. So go for it. It's neat. Glass foot tube that fits. The folks that made the replacement solid state tubes, I always saw they would look like more like a molded kind of plastic situation that you would pop in. There was a guy doing them, and they had a blue one and a red one. It was like, this one's hotter, this one's a little cooler, you know, things like that. Anybody remember this a few years ago? And they were solid state, and they were supposed to sound pretty good, you know. Do you still have the Steve Vai Marshall amps? No. They were never. Dave Friedman had them in for repair. Do I miss having them? No. I mean, they're great. You know, but I've learned a lot since I made that video and spoke with Steve and then Dave looking at them about the whole Jose thing. I mean, my Germino is like a Jose monster now. So it does all that stuff. And maybe in some ways even better because Dave did some things like the way he internally jumpers the channels so there's no gain loss is really cool. So normally when you would do like the way Jose would do jumpering so that the bass and treble channel were tied together and you could mix them, you'd lose a little gain when you do the jumper. And that's just like when you do a patch cable, very similar, doing the jumper on a 4-hole Marshall, you lose a little gain. But there's a way to do that internally where you don't lose any gain and it sounds more immediate and in your face. And it's just cool. So mine are permanently on. Both channels are the channel 1 and channel 2 of a Marshall are permanently on with no gain loss. And I can blend in the normal channel and get a fatter sound. So that's cool. And the way he did the masters is really cool. It's kind of an improvement, I think. So that's cool. There's less noise. I mean, the way it's just like a really, really improved, but similar, you know, gain stage in front of a Marshall, and the masters in the same place. And I've got the ability to do the Zener, you know, the Zener diode limiter thing that sounds like more gain, more metal. So it's all in there. And that amp is killer. And actually, I had him tweak it even more. So now it's old Marshall filtering, basically. So it's more like when I got that amp, it's a Germino Headroom 100. It had real stiff filtering, which I found interesting. Real, you know, more like a just late 70s or even later, like more filtering than what I would think a Plexi Marshall would have. So I don't know what that was about, if that was changed later or you know, if that's standard for Germino Headroom 100 or not. But anyways, we moved it back to it's like 68 low filtering now, which, you know, more ghost notes and stuff, but it's got that je ne sais quoi that you want. So yeah. What else we got here? I should go soon. Still got 560 people here though. You guys are amazing. Great to have you all here. I've been going how long? Let's go to 2.5 hours. What the hell? And then I'll get out of here. I got something I got to do today, actually. So are you open to doing session work? Sometimes. That was JS. Occasionally. It depends on the session. I am and I'm not, you know, because I'm pretty busy all the time doing what I do. So if I do sessions, I pick and choose, as most of us do with things that we do. So it depends. The Great British Valve Project. This is Brimar tubes, and they came in my Effectrode phaser. Yeah, I mean, I hope that happens. That'd be amazing for them to, if they can actually do it again. It'd be so cool. So, see, like I say, I would pay good money.
You know, I don't have no problem paying good money. Not like that Western Electric money. You know, no, forget it. But I would pay good money for a well-made British tube. I knew it was going to last a long time. I would be supportive of that. We're geeky enough, right? In these days of $5,000 clones and stuff. Isn't the BE series basically the best Jose plus Dave's Genius? Well, kind of. You know, a lot of amps are basically Jose's thing, which is, if you want to talk about it, it's a Marshall with a gain stage in front. But there's a lot that you can change along the circuit to kind of tweak, you know. So it's definitely Jose got the ball rolling on all that stuff. And then, you know, some folks, I mean, they'll do a tube further down in the, you know, rather than put it in front. But, you know, it's just different. It's different takes on a BE is not exactly a Jose, if that's what you're asking. You know, it's tuned differently, you know, and if Dave does the Jose thing in an amp, it's different, you know. The fact that a BE has, you know, doesn't have the volume 1 and 2. It's not a straight up plexi, right? It's like a little bit different. It's like the normal, or it's like the brighter channel, basically, you know. But then the way he does the bright cap, and then the way you off the first tip, I don't want to talk about tune because he's told me things about what's different and whatnot. And I want to an amp tech reading a schematic probably, you know, figure out what's going on, but it's not exactly the same thing. You know, we're talking about variations on. For sure, it's variations on a theme, and he would tell you that, you know, the way that it's tuned in and stuff. It's the same thing with a, you know, a PT15 is, you know, a Marshall with a, you know, gain stage in front, and then the way it's tuned and stuff like that. But they all don't sound exactly the same, you know. So, but we are talking about Marshalls here, you know, really. So, you know, just the Marshall that we wish Marshall would make, I guess, is what everybody does, you know. Robert says he has 4 Svetlana EL34s in his Jose Marshall, the old ones. You know, listen to them in the video that I do and tell me what you think. I did a set of the SEDs in this EL34 video that's coming out in a couple days, and you can listen to them. For me, for my taste, not to poo-poo your taste, but they've never been my favorite. And I felt like that. And it was Brian Gerhard that actually hipped me to that. And I tell the story in the video, so I won't repeat it here. But there's different stuff that I would say these days, for me, it would either be, you know, a set of JJs that don't fail, or the EHs I'm fine with. Because an EH to me has a quintessentially Marshall sound is what I was trying to say. And I love Mullards too. But, you know, like I say, listen to the video and tell me what you think. I think, to me, if you watch the video, you'll hear that the JJs sort of do the best Mullard thing, but they're a little different, but they a little more in that direction. And then the EL34, a little bit more of the Siemens RFT thing, the small bottle, which to me is kind of the quintessential EL34 sound for me. Although the Mullard's great too. You know, it's great. It's a little bit, there's more treble, there's more presence actually, and more bass. It's a very full sound. The Mullards are the biggest sounding. But to me, a Marshall isn't necessarily, like the mid-range of a Marshall is kind of, I love, you know, just where it slots in above the bass and stuff. So whatever, you'll hear. Depends on what you want, you know. And of course, there's all the other shit with like the amp, like about the circuit and other things that come into play, you know. So best load box for a super reverb, says Michael. I would actually say probably, because isn't a super 2 ohm? I mean, you'd be fine using something that is a 4 ohm. I would say probably the Fryette at set on 4 ohm would be your best bet. I think the only people that make a true, like a 2 ohm, is maybe the hot plate. Is there anything else out there that goes to 2 ohms? I don't think so. And then it's a more resistive affair, I think. So I would probably do the Power Station set at 4 ohm for a super. You should be pretty safe then. Do you ever pull out the nylon strings and rip some classical or flamenco stuff? You know, I've got a video of me doing. I did a version of Spanish Fly. That's the closest thing I ever did that recently for something that I didn't put on YouTube. So I think it's going to go on the Classic Rock Show's YouTube. I think so. That'll be out. You can hear me play my Godin and do my version of
ripping on a nylon string, but it's not something I do very often. It's not my forte, I wouldn't say. Okay, I'm starving. I should probably go. What time is it? 2:20. I got 3 more minutes, then I'm going to split. Rock and Rolling says that just bought a pair of Thornbuckers for his US American Deluxe Strat. That's cool. Killer pickups. That's awesome. I hope that sounds exactly the way you wanted it to and gives you years of trouble-free service. Some guy says he just got, that's literally his name. Some guy says he just got his hands on a Sir PT100. Any tips you can give? Which tubes, per hour and pre, would you recommend? I like tested low noise Chinese across the preamp. Fine with those. You know, they sound, that was what the amp was designed around. They sound great. You got to try and find one that's real quiet in the first slot. But if you can, you can. You just have to find a good tested one or pay for it, you know. And then EL34s, we're using the EHs now, and I'm fine with that in that amp. I think they sound great. Originally we were doing it with the JJs, which sound cool too, but I like the EH. So either one of those, and you listen to my tube test that's coming out in a couple of days, and you'll hear maybe the difference between the JJs and the EHs. But yeah, EL34 test. But I think a good the EHs are notoriously reliable. They work really well for a long time, and so that's a big thing, you know, reliability. So that's what I did, you know, Chinese and then the EHs. That's what I would say. Yeah. And Matthew says, thanks for the recommendation on the PS100. You bet, man. I'm glad you appreciate that thing and use it and like it. It is great. And they're really good. And once again, so I will chat after this, but the last thing that I'll say is for anybody that wants one of those PS100s, I'll start off, or I end the show the same way I started off. If you go to the PS100 video I did, that's the Friday Power Station, in the link, there's an email address for tone merchants, and they have 2 still. So if you want one, because I know they've been out of stock a lot, they've been slightly tough to find, there's 2 available right now. So if you want to get a PS100, just go to the link in the video description and you can get one. Yeah. Okay, everybody, I'm going to split, and I'll see you next Saturday or Sunday. What day do I do this on? For 166 weeks now? Sunday. Next Sunday. I'll see you next weekend. Please check out the EL34 video this week. It'll be fun to discuss next week, I think, for YouTube geeks. And I'll have videos for, I'm going to do a video for Nimbrini plugins this week as well. Nice amp plugins. They help design the Brainworks stuff, like my PT100, I do believe. And so they've got their own plugins under the Nimbrini brand, AC30 style, 5150, Soldano, you know, different ones. That. So I'm going to make a video for some of their plugins. They do a Sansamp PSA 1 or whatever it is. They do one of those as well, but kind of useful for drums and distorting vocals and all kinds of things. So I'm going to do a kind of an across the board video with a bunch of their plugins, and that should be coming out this week, I think. Yeah, and watch for the video of the Scream Honey as well, coming soon. I don't know if that'll be this week, might be the following week, but we'll see. Love you all. Thanks for being here. Everybody stay safe out there. See you soon.